Chapter 941 Meat Filling. Su Zimo saw this city, and it was unlike any other city he had seen. The city walls were built of black bricks, nothing more than ordinary. As the endless city wall faded from sight, from above it appeared like a cross-shaped structure. The four ends of the cross each symbolized a city gate in different directions. Be it the bricks or the materials used to build the city, all were plain and common. Su Zimo had seen many cities before, especially those vast in size, each with its own style. Some were grand and ethereal, some like a coiling dragon, others like a tiger swooping down. But this city of destruction left him with no words to describe it. If he had to, it would simply be ordinary. The land itself seemed steeped in despair, devoid of life. Beneath their feet was barren earth. Not even a blade of grass, even the hardiest kind, could be seen. The celestial cranes landed at the station nearest to the city. Flight within the city was forbidden. In this city of destruction, no identity matters. Ji Ruobing acted like a guide as she explained to Su Zimo. No matter if you're a disciple or elder of some great sect, if you break the rules of the land of destruction, you'll be punished. What are the rules of the land of destruction? Su Zimo asked. You cannot approach the sealed ground of the blood rune space. If you do, you'll be killed without mercy, Ji Ruobing replied. As the cranes touched down, a voice shouted from below. Nyoer! Nyoer! Su Zimo looked and saw that someone was already waiting at the station. The man who had earlier said he was from Ox Village hurriedly waved, shouting back at the one waiting for him. Everyone, I'll be leaving first, Nyoer said to the others. Before the crane even came to a complete stop, he leapt down into the air. An interesting fellow, Su Zimo said with a smile. Then we'll part ways here. The old man from earlier also replied with a smile, then left with his wife. Let's go too. Su Zimo stepped onto the thick ground, gazing out at the ruins. At this moment, within the immortal extinction sacred ground, at the peak of a mist-shrouded mountain, a young man in purple robes sat beside a stone table. On the table was a chessboard, black and white pieces laid out. The young man had no opponent and was playing against himself. The black and white pieces wrestled in endless struggle. No clear victor. Or rather, each side claimed victory in turns back and forth. The surroundings were quiet, only the swirling mist moving about noisily. Suddenly, footsteps came from within the mist. Soon after, Lu Chonghen appeared, holding a long sword, walking step by step in silence. The young man playing chess didn't lift his head, only spoke softly. I heard from Grand Patriarch that you were killed. I have the undying physique, Lu Chonghen replied calmly. Not his match? The purple-robed youth asked. A one-sided slaughter, Lu Chonghen said flatly. I couldn't even discern his depth. When did such a figure arise among the younger generation? The purple-robed youth finally raised his head, smiling faintly. The holy son of the true martial sacred ground is really troublesome. He should be with my junior sister Ji right now. That's none of my concern, Lu Chonghen replied. Returning from that battle, even your nature seems changed, the purple-robed youth remarked. I want to defeat him. Lu Chonghen stared straight into the young man's eyes, his black pupils holding many emotions, though he kept them hidden. The imperial mark was the best way to strengthen yourself. Such a pity. The purple-robed youth sighed slightly. What will you do next? Lu Chonghen asked. What else? Between me and my junior sister, there can only be one victor. The purple-robed youth said. The one who loses must quietly vanish. So no matter who helps her, I will crush anything that stands in my way. The mist on the mountain grew denser, finally engulfing both of them completely. Their figures blurred, and their voices faded. Within the city of destruction, in less than 5 minutes, Su Zimo had already seen many instances of burning, killing, and looting. This city was practically lawless. There were seductive women, bloodthirsty men, and no one here was simple. Anyone too simple would likely be eaten alive, bones and all. Tell me about the blood rune beasts, Su Zimo asked. With the power of the land of destruction, aren't those escaped beasts easily killed? Why bring in outsiders? The land of destruction can crush almost any imperial lineage. Strength isn't the issue. Ji Ruobing smiled. But those blood-rune beasts are extremely cunning. They can disguise themselves as other races, blending in and confusing people. The Lord of Destruction can't just slaughter everyone, right? You mean the beasts are hiding within the city, perhaps in another form right beside us? Su Zimo asked. You could say that. Since the crack appeared in the seal, the city of destruction has been closed off. Ji Ruobing said, only entry, no exit. Those beasts cannot escape. All this I specifically investigated for you. Then I owe you thanks, Su Zimo said. As they walked along the street, a man suddenly bumped into them head-on. Ji Ruobing frowned, instantly struck with her palm. Blood splattered, and the man was destroyed on the spot. The restless eyes of those around them seemed to settle. In this place, you must be ruthless and speak with strength, Ji Ruobing said. Otherwise, many will try to take advantage, especially when facing a woman of my looks. Enough! Su Zimo waved his hand slightly. Where is the blood-rune space? I don't know either. Ji Ruobing shook her head. You don't know? Su Zimo asked, surprised. My guess is it lies within the mountain city where the Lord of Destruction resides. But no one is allowed to approach that place, Ji Ruobing said. Still, since the Lord of Destruction has ordered the capture of the beasts, if you catch one, you should gain entry. That's your plan? Su Zimo asked. Do you have a better one? Ji Ruobing countered. My plan is, let's eat first, Su Zimo said. The two found a small roadside stall. The owner was selling dumplings. What kind of dumpling filling do you two want? The owner asked with a smile. What kinds do you have? Ji Ruobing asked curiously. There are plenty Minotaur, Moonshadow. The 8 major races of the Land of Destruction are all available. If you want human meat, that's no problem either, the vendor said with a grin. In the Land of Destruction, the one thing we're never short of is meat filling. Chapter 942 Minotaur Gang, Moonshadow Gang. Hearing the stall owner's words, Ji Ruobing felt a little sick. She looked at Su Zimo and said, I suddenly don't feel like eating anymore. What sells best here? Give me a serving of that. Su Zimo smiled and sat down at the stall. You? Ji Ruobing's beautiful eyes glanced at him, and she snorted lightly. The stall owner prepared the dumplings, and soon the steaming hot dumplings gave off a strong fragrance. The stall was crude, but the craftsmanship was good. Su Zimo ate heartily, and while eating he asked, Old man, has anything strange happened here recently? What exactly does the guest mean? The stall owner asked with a smile. About the blood-rune beasts. Su Zimo didn't beat around the bush. The matter of the blood-rune beasts had already stirred up the city of destruction. All the unfamiliar faces who had come recently were probably here because of it. There was no way to hide it. Is young master buying information? The stall owner laughed. Oh, you really have some? Su Zimo asked. He had no leads and had just asked casually. I've been in this city of destruction for 300 years. Naturally, I know everything, the stall owner said with a smile. In this city, even the smallest trivial matters, I remember them clearly. Then I'll buy one. How much is it? Su Zimo asked. Recently more and more people have come to the city of destruction. My meat fillings seem to be running short, the stall owner said to himself. The gang leader of the Moonshadow Gang in the Eastern District might be a good choice. Deal. Su Zimo put down his chopsticks, wiped the grease from the corner of his mouth and stood up. This time the stall owner didn't say anything more. He just silently boiled water, the bubbling sound rising. Watching Su Zimo head toward the Eastern District, Ji Ruobing quickly followed after him. You actually believe that stall owner? Ji Ruobing said. He's just a dumpling seller. What if he's playing you? How would I know if I don't try? Su Zimo replied. There are so many people on that street. You could ask anyone, but you chose to believe a dumpling seller. Ji Ruobing complained. Because he's the only one I couldn't see through, Su Zimo said, turning his head. If one wanted to find traces of the blood-rune beasts, they couldn't go the usual route. So many outsiders had already come into the City of Destruction by now, and the common channels and methods must have been tried long ago. Even if there really were blood-rune beasts, it wouldn't be their turn. But that stall owner's aura was vast like a deep sea. Su Zimo actually couldn't see through him, so he had tested him with a question. This city was full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Clearly, that stall owner was no simple person. Moon Shadow Gang? By the name it seems to be related to the Moon Shadow race, Su Zimo said. Why not just ask someone and find out? Ji Ruobing said. Arriving at the Eastern District, this place seemed even more chaotic than before. In many places on the street there were fights, but the passers-by had long since become indifferent. They just walked past as if nothing was happening. At that moment, a rumbling sound shook the ground. It was as if the entire earth was trembling. The people on the street looked up. From the left and right intersections, two massive groups of people rushed in. Their steps were uniform. Each step they took produced a sharp, ringing sound. The Minotaur Gang and Moon Shadow Gang are at it again. Everyone hide quickly, someone shouted. Instantly the people in the street scattered in all directions. Some hid in the shops along the street, some in dark alleys and others on rooftops. In just a few minutes, the once busy street was cleared and became cold and empty. Su Zimo and Ji Ruobing also found a rooftop to hide on, along with a few others. Another show to watch. This time, who do you think will win? Someone nearby said. It seemed they were so used to this scene that they treated it as entertainment. Friends, we're new here in the City of Destruction. Could you tell us what's happening down there? Su Zimo asked as he stepped forward. The group glanced at Su Zimo and Ji Ruobing. One of the men smiled and said, Your wife looks really good. Wife? Su Zimo was taken aback, then glanced at Ji Ruobing and shook his head with a smile. We're just traveling companions. Originally Ji Ruobing's face had been slightly flushed, but when she heard Su Zimo's explanation, her expression immediately turned calm again, and she gave a light snort. Then can I get to know this beauty? The man looked at Ji Ruobing and quickly asked with a grin. Piss off, Ji Ruobing replied bluntly. Feisty. I like that kind of personality. The man licked his lips and laughed. You still haven't answered my question, Su Zimo said from the side. Oh, you mean the Moon Shadow Gang and Minotaur Gang, the man said, still staring at Ji Ruobing. They're the two biggest gangs in the Eastern District. They often fight each other over small matters. We're already used to it. Do you know where the Moon Shadow Gang leader is? Su Zimo asked. Of course, in their headquarters, the man said. The leader of the Moon Shadow Gang is called Qin Luo. They say he's an elder of the Moon Shadow race. Got it. Su Zimo nodded with a smile. Then he lifted his right foot and stomped hard on the man's right hand. Ah! The man screamed in pain, unable to react in time. With 4 sharp cracks, the man's 4 limbs were crushed by Su Zimo's foot. Next time, don't harass my people, especially in front of me. After saying that, Su Zimo kicked the man off the rooftop. The battle below had already devolved into chaos. When they saw the man fall, no one cared. In the melee, he was hacked to pieces. Let's go, Su Zimo said to Ji Ruobing. Her lips curved into a faint smile, and she silently followed behind Su Zimo. Are you planning to just charge in directly? Ji Ruobing asked. What else? Su Zimo asked back. You haven't even investigated the Moon Shadow Gang's strength. What if you get trapped? Ji Ruobing said. Shouldn't you at least scout things out first? I don't want to waste time. Su Zimo shook his head. Besides, I already have a plan. As he spoke, Su Zimo looked at Ji Ruobing with a mischievous expression. What are you planning? Ji Ruobing said warily. You're not thinking of having me seduce someone, are you? You're overthinking it. Su Zimo shook his head and laughed. He said, You'll charge into the Moon Shadow Gang and draw everyone's attention. Then I'll sneak in and kill the gang leader. Wouldn't that solve everything neatly? No need to bother with anything else. When you punished that man earlier, I silently thanked you, Ji Ruobing said. So this was your plan all along. Chapter 943 Clues. Then it's happily decided, Su Zimo said with a smile. He and Ji Ruobing headed north, walking for about 10 minutes before finally stopping in front of a spacious courtyard. Calling it a courtyard wasn't quite right, since the area was dozens of times larger than a normal one. The outer walls were built very high, about 4 or 5 meters tall. The main gate was very crude, merely a few wooden planks fastened together. At the entrance stood 2 guards. Did you hear? Those guys from the Minotaur gang started fighting with us again, one of the guards said. A bunch of muscle-brained fools. Sooner or later we'll wipe them out completely. The other sneered coldly. Just then, a loud explosion rang out. A terrifying sword intent slashed in from the distance, splitting the speaking man in half. The other immediately shouted, "Someone is forcing their way into Moon Shadow Gang." That shout instantly drew much attention. The Moon Shadow Gang clearly had a massive scale. In just moments, dozens of people rushed out from inside the compound. Ji Ruobing held her long sword, her body wrapped in ancient sword intent. An overwhelming pressure bore down. With a single swing of her sword, endless sword aura poured down, directly obliterating dozens of men. The intruder is strong. Quickly inform the gang leader and the elders, someone yelled. As more and more members of the Moon Shadow Gang gathered, the gate became a scene of utter chaos. Inside the Moon Shadow Gang, there was a grand, luxuriously decorated room. It was built entirely out of Skyfire stone, a type of or rich in spirit force, said to help heal wounds and nourish the body. Such stone was considered precious, and to construct an entire chamber out of it was an extravagant display. At this moment, bursts of women's laughter came from within. Outside, plum blossoms were in full bloom, their pink petals adorning the scenery. Though it was late autumn, these winter flowers persisted. Gang leader, something's wrong. A flustered disciple's voice shouted from afar. A young man in green robes came running into the courtyard, panting heavily. With a creak, the doors to the room swung open. A burly man walked out, flanked by 2 flirtatious women. The women were of average beauty but dressed seductively, their heavy makeup nearly obscuring their natural features. Like octopuses, the 2 clung to the man on either side. Meanwhile, the man's hands wandered restlessly over their bodies. What's the panic? The sky isn't falling. The man's deep voice rumbled. He wore a black and white robe, patterned like shadows of moonlight, though his clothes were quite disheveled. Yes, yes. The green-robed man hurriedly nodded at the gang leader's words. What is it? The burly man asked again. Is it about today's duel with those Minotaur fools? Did something go wrong? No, someone has forced their way into our compound, the green-robed man quickly explained. Who? The burly man frowned. Don't recognize her, it's a woman, the man replied. A woman? Just one. The burly man let out a cold snort. A pack of trash. Getting beaten like this by a woman. She's very strong. Second elder didn't last even 3 moves. The green-robed disciple continued. Fine, bring me my Wolf-Fang saber, the burly man said flatly. He turned to the 2 women beside him, smirking. Little darlings, wait here. When I return, I'll pamper you properly. Gang leader, you're bad. The women giggled coquettishly. The man entered the room and retrieved a massive saber, its scabbard carved with a wolf's head. Just as he prepared to leave with the green-robed man, footsteps sounded. A youth in a purple robe walked out from the corridor. Who are you? The burly man frowned at Su Zimo. Moon Shadow Gang leader, Qin Luo? Su Zimo asked with a smile. So it's just a blind fool. The burly man scoffed, not bothering with words. He swung his saber, still sheathed, directly at Su Zimo. The blow shook the ground. With a crash, the nearby pavilion and corridor collapsed, cracks splitting the earth. But when the man looked down, Su Zimo was standing calmly in front of him, one hand gripping the scabbard firmly. "I originally intended to give you a chance," Suzimo said. "But since you insist, you won't even get the chance to draw your blade." With one palm strike, Suzimo reversed the saber's momentum. With a metallic clang, the weapon burst from its scabbard, the blade piercing straight through the man's chest and heart. Thick, black blood dripped down. "I wonder if your flesh will make for good dumpling filling," Suzimo murmured as he dragged the corpse step by step outside. The green-robed man and the two women stood frozen in terror. This time, Suzimo walked straight out of the Moon Shadow Gang's main gate. Outside, the battle still raged. Ji Ruobing, clad in snow-white robes, stood amidst the bloodshed like a snowflake blooming. Not a drop of blood stained her as hundreds failed to even approach her. But then the crowd suddenly halted. Everyone looked up to see a youth dragging their gang leader's corpse. A long trail of blood marked his path. Someone swallowed hard. "The gang leader is dead," another muttered. For a moment, everyone forgot to fight. "Let's go," Suzimo said to Ji Ruobing. "Leave it too long, and the meat won't be fresh. The gang leader's dead. It's over. It's over." Panicked voices came from the rear. "The sky is falling." Yet no one dared step forward as they watched Suzimo and Ji Ruobing's figures disappear from sight. At the dumpling stall, steaming hot dumplings released their rich fragrance. But business was far from booming. "Your meat filling," Suzimo said as he tossed the corpse before the stall owner. "How does it feel?" the stall owner asked with a smile. "Weaker than expected," Suzimo replied bluntly. "Such a man could lead the Moon Shadow Gang? His father is the patriarch of the Moon Shadow race. He's a bastard son," the stall owner explained with a chuckle. "He couldn't survive in the race, and his father knew what kind of person he was. So he poured resources into establishing the Moon Shadow Gang here in this city, letting him indulge freely in this lawless land." "Then why did you want him killed?" Suzimo asked. "For justice," the stall owner smiled. "The light of the righteous path," Suzimo chuckled as well. "And why didn't you strike him down yourself?" "I promised someone I would never draw my blade again," the stall owner answered. "Recently, a new family has moved into the southern part of the city. You might find what you're seeking there." Chapter 944 Mountain God Race. Hearing the vendor's words, Suzimo frowned slightly and said, "Can't you be a little more specific? In the south of the city, there's a household where a little girl lives. I watched her grow up. She used to often come eat dumplings at my stall," the vendor said to himself. That little girl had always been an orphan, but recently she somehow gained parents. And she stopped coming to eat my dumplings. "Who would dare eat your dumplings?" Ji Ruobing glanced at the corpse of Qin Luo beside them and muttered softly. "Got it." Suzimo thought for a moment, then finally nodded. He led Ji Ruobing straight toward the south of the city. "You actually trust him?" Ji Ruobing asked. "Whether I trust him or not, we'll know once we go," Suzimo replied. The south of the city was rather desolate. The ground was overgrown with weeds, and the people living here seemed to be from the very bottom layer of this city. On both sides of the main road were all sorts of makeshift tents, inside which lay unkempt people. In the alleys, groups of beggars in tattered clothes lay half dead. This city seemed to contain 100 different faces. Every district you went to, you'd see something different. The two of them arrived at the courtyard the vendor had mentioned. The courtyard was very old, with earthen walls that had partly collapsed. "Let's go in and see," Suzimo said. He stepped forward and knocked on the door. Before long, the gate opened. The one who opened it was a little girl. She wore a plain coarse white shirt, had 2 little braids on each side, and her face seemed smudged with dirt. "Do you need something?" the little girl asked curiously. "Little one, are your parents home?" Suzimo asked. "Papa, someone's here to see you," the girl called into the house. A voice replied, "Coming," and soon a middle-aged man in a dark blue robe walked out. The man's appearance was ordinary, showing nothing unusual. "Who are you?" the man frowned and asked. Oh, we are enforcers under the Lord of Destruction, Ji Ruobing quickly answered. This time we've been ordered to investigate the case of the escaped Blood Rune Beast. What does that have to do with us? The man asked nervously. Someone reported that you have a connection with the Blood Rune Beast, so we came to investigate, Ji Ruobing said coldly. Please, sirs, see the truth, the man quickly explained. These days the city is so restless that we barely leave our home. How could we know anything about a Blood Rune Beast? Too many words are useless. We'll check, and if there's nothing, we won't trouble you further, Ji Ruobing said. The man hesitated, then finally nodded. Please, come in. As they entered the house, Su Zimo frowned slightly. The little girl and the man who had received them didn't seem out of the ordinary. The courtyard was very simple. From an inner room came the sound of coughing. Old Dong, is someone here? Hearing the voice, the man quickly explained, That's my wife. She's gravely ill and not fit to see people. I ask your forgiveness. Let's go take a look, Su Zimo said. Entering the inner room, a strong medicinal smell assaulted their noses, pungent and overwhelming. On the table was a freshly brewed medicine pot, and on the bed lay a woman covered completely by a blanket. My friend here is a physician. As the saying goes, doctors are like parents. Let her examine your wife, Su Zimo said with a smile. Perhaps there may be some miraculous effect. Then many thanks, sir. The man hesitated but finally nodded. Ji Ruobing glared at Su Zimo, then slowly walked toward the woman. Madam, stretch out your hand, Ji Ruobing said. Then I'll trouble this beauty. A strange voice came from under the blanket, and suddenly a green claw swiped past Ji Ruobing's eyes, aiming straight for them. Ji Ruobing snorted coldly, seemingly prepared, and quickly retreated. With a boom, the room's door slammed shut, and the blanket flew up. A green-skinned monster stood up. The monster's form was hideous, its whole body oily green, resembling the imps of legend. Its ears were like an elf's, sharp and long, its bald head covered in rippling patterns. Its 2 eyes were pure white, with a hooked nose like a hawk. You deserve death, the little demon said angrily. The next moment, 4 more imps leapt down from the beams of the room. Meanwhile, the little girl and the man had long been terrified, shivering in a corner. Blood Rune Beasts look like this? Ji Ruobing asked curiously. They are not Blood Rune Beasts, Su Zimo said gravely, shaking his head. Though he had never seen one himself when he had been in the northern continent, he had seen ancient carvings left behind at the ruins of the Sword Immortal Jiang race. The Jiang race had been guardians of the Blood Rune space in the north, just like the Sword Immortal Jiang Yun himself. Though Blood Rune Beasts had many forms, they shared one common trait. Their power was that of spirit summoning. That was a special kind of power from the twilight of the legendary era. Just like the gods of the legendary era, who all possessed divine powers. But these green monsters before them used nothing but ordinary spirit force. How could they compare with overlords of the legendary era? Who exactly are you? Su Zimo frowned and asked. Your superior has already come, and you still ask who we are? The monster said coldly. You interrupted our worship. Do you know what the consequences are? What race are you? Su Zimo asked again. The monster did not answer, but slowly raised its hands. These hands were unlike those of normal beings. Most beings had 5 fingers, long and short, but this monster had 6 fingers, all of equal length. Ji Ruobing, with her broad knowledge, thought for a moment and asked in shock, Are you from the 6-finger race? Oh, so someone still remembers that name. The monster looked at Ji Ruobing with a faint glance. With a cold snort it said, But those lowly 6-finger race wretches cannot compare to us. They are but a mottled side branch. We are the true mountain god race. Mountain god race? Su Zimo shook his head slightly. Never heard of it. He wasn't one who read much. Outside of what interested him, he paid little attention. With 3,000 races in this world, how could he remember them all? Mountain god race. Ji Ruobing, however, exclaimed softly. She carefully asked, So the worship you mentioned earlier, you were worshipping the mountain god? What else did you think? The monster said angrily. But because of your intrusion, I was forced to stop the ritual. Hearing this, Ji Ruobing tugged at Su Zimo's sleeve and whispered, "This might be a misunderstanding." Chapter 945, The Last Move. Hearing Ji Ruobing's words, Su Zimo's expression changed, as if he had realized something. "We've been tricked," he said to Ji Ruobing. Seeing that Ji Ruobing still looked confused, Su Zimo didn't bother to explain here. "Kill!" the green monster roared, leading the other creatures as they charged at Su Zimo. "If you want to worship the mountain god, then continue. Why so violent?" Su Zimo threw a punch as he spoke. "You deserve to die. Worship cannot be taken lightly," the monster bellowed furiously. "Our race prepared so many offerings for this ritual, and now they're all ruined. Will you compensate us?" Seeing that reasoning was useless, Su Zimo lost interest in further words. He looked at Ji Ruobing and said, "Let's leave here first." Ji Ruobing nodded slightly. She swung her ancient sword with her right hand, and a sky-shaking sword aura fell between them, like a great chasm, forcing the monsters back. By the time the sword aura faded, the two of them had already disappeared. "You ruined our worship. Prepare for our vengeance." The monster's angry roars echoed from behind. Walking along a relatively lively street, when Su Zimo returned to the spot where the dumpling vendor had been, the stall owner was already gone. The empty street looked as if he had never existed. "What exactly is going on?" Ji Ruobing asked, looking at Su Zimo. "How laughable. The one we were searching for was right in front of us, and we didn't realize it," Su Zimo said with a smile. "In front of us?" Ji Ruobing froze for a moment. Then she suddenly reacted. "That stall owner was the blood rune beast?" "That's the only explanation," Su Zimo said calmly. "But why?" Ji Ruobing thought aloud. "I don't understand. What's the point of deceiving us? This city of destruction is already chaotic enough. It wants to stir the waters even muddier," Su Zimo said. "To drag us down with it," Ji Ruobing added. "Not just us." Su Zimo shook his head. "We killed Qin Luo. He was the illegitimate son of the Moon Shadow Race's patriarch. The Moon Shadow Race won't let this matter rest. Now we've also disrupted the Mountain God Race's worship. See? In this way, both the Moon Shadow Race and the Mountain God Race have been dragged into the mess." "I understand now," Ji Ruobing nodded lightly. "Although the City of Destruction is chaotic, everyone's goals are still clear. They all came in response to the Lord of Destruction, to hunt down the Blood Rune Beast. It's trying to distract them." Su Zimo nodded. "So what do we do now?" Ji Ruobing asked. "These beasts even managed to trick me. That's rather interesting," Su Zimo said. "First, let's find that fellow." "How?" Ji Ruobing asked again. "As far as I know, blood rune beasts are best at disguise and transformation. One moment it's a man, the next it could be a woman." "What place in the City of Destruction has the most people?" Su Zimo asked. Ji Ruobing was silent for a while. Then her face turned red as she finally said, "The brothel. I nearly forgot that." "Then let's go to the brothel," Su Zimo said. "Are you hoping to try your luck again?" Ji Ruobing asked. "Not really, I simply want to go," Su Zimo laughed. "You pervert." Ji Ruobing snorted coldly. "If you want to go, then go. I'm not going. I never said you had to. But I do need you to handle something," Su Zimo said. "What is it?" Ji Ruobing looked up, her bright eyes fixed on him. "Lying in wait for the rabbit," Su Zimo chuckled. Then he leaned close and whispered his plan into her ear. After he finished, Ji Ruobing frowned with worry. "Doing this, won't it be too dangerous? I don't even fear imperial lineages. Why would I fear just a city of destruction?" Su Zimo waved his hand dismissively. "This is the only method we have right now, and the most practical one." "All right, then you take care." Ji Ruobing thought it over and finally nodded. "But if something really happens, don't be reckless." "So you are worried about me?" Su Zimo chuckled. I'm just afraid you'll drag me down with you? Ji Ruobing snorted before turning to leave. After parting with Ji Ruobing, Su Zimo sought out the largest brothel in the City of Destruction. Here, brothels were the most profitable businesses. Of course, without strength, no one dared open a brothel here. Compared to other places, the area around the brothel was clearly much more prosperous. Master, please come in. Our girls are beautiful and affordable, sure to leave you satisfied. Oh my, young master who, you actually have free time today? 3 girls, will that be enough? The madam, dressed in gaudy silk, stood at the door, pulling anyone she saw inside. When she spotted Su Zimo, her eyes lit up. This young master is a new face, isn't he? Come in and try. I guarantee you'll taste sweetness and never want to leave. Su Zimo smiled and walked in. Would you like refined or common? The madam asked with a grin. What do you mean by refined, and what by common? Su Zimo asked curiously. Refined means selling art but not the body. It's all up to the girl's willingness. If you have the ability, you can win her body over. Common, well, I don't need to explain that. Whatever you want, you'll have. The madam's eyes gleamed as she explained. Refined then. I'd rather not get an STD, Su Zimo said with a smile. Then please follow me, the madam said, leading Su Zimo down the left corridor. After passing through the corridor, the view opened up. It was actually a peony garden. White peonies and pink peonies bloomed in full competition. Their fragrance drifted through the air, refreshing the spirit. Our refined quarters are divided into 4 places: the peony garden, the plum garden, the bamboo grove, and the music hall. Young master may stroll freely. Whether the girls will favor you depends on your own skill. Hearing her explanation, Su Zimo smiled and waved for her to leave. He then stepped into the peony garden. After walking for about 5 minutes, a lively noise from the left caught his interest. In this peony garden, the finest bloom must be drunken beauty. It is national grace, heavenly fragrance, the king of flowers. No, I say it is white eternal in the white peonies. Its aura is aloof, like frost and snow, the true king of flowers, to be admired from afar but not defiled. Miss Xiao, you judge for us. Which flower is the most beautiful? A crowd had gathered, arguing fiercely over a few blossoms. Su Zimo found it amusing. Did these people come to the brothel just to admire flowers? But thinking about it, it made sense. Brothels also had refined and vulgar sides. After all, some girls sold only their art, not their bodies, making them more like artists and performers. Why argue, young masters? In the eyes of 10,000 people are 10,000 flowers. Like what you like. Why care about others' opinions? A melodious voice rang out from within the crowd. Chapter 946, Slim White Dragon always on diet. If Miss Ruoyun says so, that is true. No person is perfect, so naturally no flower can be called flawless, someone nearby praised. Su Zimo walked closer to take a look and discovered that the crowd had gathered around a spot where pink and white peonies intertwined. The woman who had spoken earlier wore purple clothing, her slender waist wrapped with a layer of purple gauze. Her face was also covered by a purple veil. Though her features couldn't be seen clearly, her eyes carried a watery tenderness. It was clear she was a beauty in the making. At her side, the 2 quarreling youths were both young men. One wore a black robe with a crown on his head, while the other wore a white robe, his hair tied tightly atop his head. Most curious of all, he actually had 2 horns growing from his head. This was the mark of the ox race. Young Master Nyo, young Master Zhua, please stop quarreling, someone beside them urged. Each flower has its own merits. The purple-robed woman seemed uninterested and suggested, why don't we head to the zither chamber instead? We've admired the flowers enough. Then we'll follow Miss Zhao's suggestion, someone nearby agreed. As Su Zimo looked ahead, a plump fellow approached him. His hair was slicked back and shiny, and in his hand he carried a gaudy fan. Su Zimo grabbed him and asked, Brother, may I ask, who are these people? And who are you? The fat man glanced at Su Zimo and asked back, I, the one and only Suzimo, a dependable young gentleman whose good name and kind deeds never change, Suzimo replied. I am White Autumn Crane, also known as Slim White Dragon, always on diet, the fat man declared. Suzimo sized him up. His name sounded elegant, but it didn't quite match his figure. Brother, you haven't answered my question yet, Suzimo pressed. You mean them? That woman is the courtesan queen of this refined garden, Xiao Ruoyun. The horned fellow is the son of the ox race patriarch, named Nyodali. The one in the black robe is the son of the wood martial god. The fat man explained with ease, rattling off names like an expert. Wood martial god. Suzimo frowned slightly. You've heard of him, right? I can tell you're not from this city, Slim White Dragon explained. Under the Lord of Destruction, there are 8 martial gods, named after gold, wood, water, fire, earth, thunder, wind, and darkness. These 8 martial gods guard all of Destruction's territory. Now that Destruction City is in turmoil, it was originally under the guard of the wood martial god. Not long ago, even the thunder and fire martial gods were summoned here. After saying this, the fat man sneaked a glance around, then said in a low tone, What I just told you is all top secret. Don't spread it. I'm only telling you because I find you agreeable. Then thank you, Brother Slim. Suzimo nodded with a smile. This is my first time in this refined garden. Would you show me around? There's nothing special here to look at, the fat man said disdainfully. I'll take you to the zither chamber instead. That's where all the stunning beauties are. Seems Brother Slim knows this place well, Suzimo smiled. Of course. To be honest, I've been frequenting here since I was young. The fat man grinned. By 7 years old, I could recite the names of every girl here backwards. By 10, I could walk the entire garden blindfolded. Impressive, impressive, Suzimo laughed. With Slim White Dragon leading the way, the two left the peony garden and walked further inside. Plum blossoms dotted the air with fragrance, surpassing the freshness of any perfume. The bamboo grove was tranquil and pleasant, green waters blending with the mountains. The zither chamber sat right between the plum garden and bamboo grove. One side carried drifting plum blossoms, the other quiet bamboo. Though called a chamber, it was merely a scene enclosed by coral-like fences. There was no roof, only the vast blue sky above. The zither chamber was vast, almost large enough to hold several plum gardens. Inside were many women in traditional dress, slender, curvy, all kinds. They plucked their zither while surrounded by people sitting or standing. There were silk-robed young masters, rough men, and even some elderly figures. The girls' delicate hands danced on the strings, and melodious music echoed in the air. Bro, look at those smooth legs. Could you ever tire of them in 10 years? And those giant breasts, what do they remind you of? And look at that girl, so modest, so charming. The fat man muttered as soon as they entered, his eyes scanning every woman, clicking his tongue now and then. Ladies and gentlemen, today our elegant garden is hosting an event. One woman stepped forward, looking around and smiling. With the zither as accompaniment, a contest of martial arts and friendship, would anyone like to join? Little miss, if we join, your elegant garden has to offer a prize, right? A burly man shouted. Since you all insist, the woman smiled. The winner will earn the favor of Miss Jing, one night in her company. Young miss, are you serious? The burly man continued. The crowd immediately burst into excitement. It's absolutely true, the woman assured. Who is Miss Jing? Suzimo asked Slim White Dragon curiously. I don't know either. The fat man shook his head. Didn't you say you knew this place well? Suzimo asked, puzzled. Miss Jing is the only one I don't know, the fat man admitted truthfully. She's shrouded in mystery, said to have an extraordinary background. She knows astronomy above and geography below. There's nothing from the last 5,000 years that she doesn't know. Ordinary people never get to see her. I don't even know what she looks like. But her zither playing is heavenly. Even someone like me, who knows nothing of music, loves it. He leaned close to Suzimo and whispered, I suspect she's an ugly woman. That's why she never shows her real face. So mysterious. Why would the elegant garden let her accompany guests? Su Zimo asked. It must be her own decision. The garden can't control her. The fat man replied. If I can win Miss Jing's favor, I'll die happy. The burly man shouted loudly. I'll enter this contest. I'll join too. Others around him signed up eagerly. We've nothing better to do anyway. Why don't we give it a try too? The fat man looked at Su Zimo. Can you even fight? Su Zimo asked with doubt. The fat man showed no aura of strength at all. Either he was extremely powerful and could suppress it freely, or he practiced some kind of aura-concealing art. Or maybe he was just weak, which explained why no strength could be felt. You think my title, Slim White Dragon, is for nothing? The fat man snorted. Just wait and see. Brother Luo, why don't we open the match? A white-robed man nearby called out with a laugh. Chapter 947 Martial Gathering. Then I shall not decline. The man who had been called stood up with a smile. One of them stood with hands clasped behind his back, while the other held a folding fan with a graceful bearing. As spirit force surged around them, though it looked like mere sparring, both were actually using true skill. From within the room came the sound of a zither. The melody was like iron cavalry charging, like the great yellow river rolling eastward. It carried a heavy battle rhythm, rumbling, as if painting visions before one's eyes, enemy generals beheaded amidst armies of 10,000. The music made the blood boil, stirring a desire to fight heaven and earth. As if inspired by the zither, the two in the plum garden to the left of the music hall also began to fight in earnest. One punch carried the true intent of fist law. A folding fan, illusions of plum blossoms blooming, even snow falling endlessly from the heavens. Though it was said to be friendly sparring, everyone there was almost entirely fighting for Miss Jing's favor. It didn't take long before the man with the folding fan was defeated. His illusion shattered with one punch, his body sent flying. Lone Goose of Great Desert. Comes to learn. Another man immediately stepped forward after the fanholder's defeat. Gentlemen, why not allow the participants to rest for a round before continuing? The courtesan of Elegant Garden suggested with a smile. That way it would be fairer, avoiding a will battle. Very well, this brother shall rest for now. Who is willing to fight me? Lone Goose called loudly. Weren't you wanting to go? Su Zimo looked at the fat man and asked. These people don't interest me. Only when Yodali or Zhuoquan take the stage will it be worthy of me. The fat man said disdainfully. You also like Miss Jing? Su Zimo asked. Not really. I have questions I wish to ask her. They say she knows everything. The fat man replied. Then does she know about the blood rune beasts? Su Zimo asked with a smile. At Su Zimo's words, the fat man fell silent for a moment, then looked around cautiously. Seeing no one paying attention, he whispered, I'll tell you a secret. The seal of the blood rune space has cracked. The day the blood rune beasts escaped, I heard the Lord of Destruction himself personally visited Miss Jing. Truly, Su Zimo was stunned. Just hearsay, just hearsay. The fat man quickly denied with an awkward smile. In the center of the plum garden, matches had rotated many times. Almost everyone there came to join in, regardless of strength. After nearly half an hour, only one man remained standing. It was an old man. Is there anyone else who wishes to fight? If not, then this spot belongs to me, the old man said with a smile. Silence spread through the crowd. Most had already gone up and been defeated. Then came a shout. I'll go. Nyodali, bare-chested, walked in from outside the plum garden. Nyodali looked at the old man, waved his hand lightly, and said with a smile, One move. Young man, your tone is far too arrogant. The old man snorted. Nyodali said nothing. From his nostrils came two streams of white air. In the next instant, golden light flashed across the horns atop his head, and his body blurred into illusion. With a boom, he appeared right before the old man, ramming forward with his horns. The old man gathered spirit force in both hands, unleashing it violently to meet the charge. A scream rang out. The golden horns pierced directly through the old man's body, nailing him upon them. "Killing you sullies my horns," Nyodali said coldly. His eyes swept the crowd with vicious glare, sending chills down spines. "Zhuoquan, fight me," Nyodali demanded. "I am in no hurry." Zhuoquan waved his hand slightly, as if waiting for something. "If you won't fight, then scram," Nyodali said disdainfully. "Who else dares fight?" "I'll give it a try." The fat man stepped forward and said calmly. "Who are you?" Nyodali frowned. "What does it matter? Fight." The fat man shouted fiercely and charged. His plump body was unexpectedly nimble, like a slippery loach, darting at Nyodali. Nyodali snorted coldly, stamping the ground with his giant foot, causing countless cracks to split the earth. 9 Meridian Seal, the fat man said coldly. His figure split into countless afterimages in the air. These afterimages were indistinguishable from reality, surrounding Nyodali. Nyodali was instantly confused, unable to direct his brute strength. In the next instant, the afterimages moved so fast they were nearly invisible. Even Su Zimo, using perception, could only see blurry forms. Bang, 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 their collisions echoed in the air. "Enough!" The fat man withdrew rapidly, pulling back to distance himself from Nyodali. "What did you do?" Nyodali glared furiously. The golden light that had shone on his horns before was now gone. No trace of spirit force within. "My sealing technique can seal your meridians. For 7 days, you're no different from an ordinary man," the fat man said proudly. "Do you still wish to fight?" "You used trickery," Nyodali shouted angrily. "If no one else wishes to fight, then the spot is mine." "Zhuoquan," Nyodali said unwillingly, turning to him. "I won't participate." Zhuoquan shook his head. "Since no one else dares step up, then I declare the first place of this martial gathering belongs to young Master Bai," the courtesan announced with a smile. "Wait!" The fat man raised his hand, looked at Su Zimo and smiled. "Brother Su, I give this spot to you." "To me?" Su Zimo was startled. "Yes," the fat man chuckled, walking forward and patting Su Zimo's shoulder. "1 night of spring is worth 1,000 gold. Don't waste my goodwill." "Why give it to me?" Su Zimo asked doubtfully. "Because I feel like it. I don't need a reason to act," the fat man said, waving dismissively. "Then please, this way," the courtesan said to Su Zimo. "According to the rules, you may now spend the night with Miss Jing." Su Zimo felt a bit muddled by it all, but under the envious gazes of the crowd, followed the courtesan into the depths of the music hall. Passing through the main hall, they reached a corridor ahead. On either side hung countless paintings and calligraphy scrolls. "Miss Jing adores writing and painting," the courtesan explained with a smile. "All of these are her own works." Su Zimo showed little interest. Such things did not attract him. As they walked through the corridor, a gentle zither tune began to rise in the distance, like curling smoke from kitchen fires, soft and lingering. Chapter 948, The Mysterious Miss Jing. Listening to the sound of the zither, it was leisurely and comfortable, as if a stream slowly flowed across the heart, nourishing all things. Like spring rain seeping in, clearly just sound, yet it gave one vivid images before the eyes, as though stepping into a world conjured by the music. This was only possible when the music reached a level so high that the player could let the listener feel her inner world. Listening, Su Zimo felt his own heart become very calm. The corridor was quiet, red pillars on both sides. At the very end of the corridor ahead, a small pavilion appeared. At this moment, a woman was standing inside the pavilion, facing the small lake beyond. At the pavilion's entrance hung a beaded curtain. The curtain was made of strings of fine pearls, with colored wind chimes attached. As the distant breeze swept across the lake's ripples, the wind chimes rang ding-dang. "Young Master Su, this is the place. I shall take my leave now," the guiding woman smiled and said to Su Zimo. She bowed slightly, then gracefully retreated. Su Zimo walked straight forward, lifting the pearl curtain of wind chimes with his hand. The pavilion was not large. In front stood a harp. A woman in a white lotus dress leaned against the pavilion's edge, gazing out at the lake. Her temperament was elegant, just quietly standing there. Her long dress was flowing and graceful, like a lotus blooming in full. It was as if lotus blossomed atop lotus. Her waist was slender, her figure graceful. Looking upward, her snow-white neck was truly like fresh snow, pure and flawless. Her flaxen hair flowed freely down her back, lifted slightly by the gentle breeze. At this moment, sunlight was bright, spring scenery flourishing, everything just right. Su Zimo sat by the pavilion's table, casually pouring himself a cup of tea. The tea was green, bitter yet carrying a hint of sweetness. "I've heard you understand astronomy and geography, the matters of thousands of years past and future," Su Zimo began. "What is it young master wishes to know?" Miss Jing turned, smiling sweetly. Like February snow meeting warm sun, all haze vanished. Only then did Su Zimo take in her appearance. Her brows were like green feathers, like willow brows yet more perfect, curved just right. Her skin was like snow, as if washed in milk, smooth and delicate, evoking the urge to reach out and touch. Her teeth were like shelled pearls, her small cherry lips painted in soft red, her teeth neat and white. A true beauty, graceful and refined. Su Zimo could not help but think of a poem. Clouds long to be her dress, flowers her face. Spring breeze brushes the railing, dew makes blossoms heavy with charm. Clouds wish to be her clothing, flowers her adornment. The spring breeze stroked the balustrade, dew enriched the blossom's splendor. Throughout his life, Su Zimo had seen many beautiful women, saints of great sex and more, but none could compare with her. It was as if each of her features was placed perfectly, just right. It made one sigh that such perfection could exist in the world. She carried a faint fragrance, so faint one might miss it without focus. Yet once one caught it, it carried a strange allure, addictive and impossible to resist. "What do you know?" Su Zimo countered. Miss Jing sat slowly down across from him, her long dress flowing across the floor. "Does young master want to know about his own life, perhaps test me?" She smiled. "Speak freely," Su Zimo nodded. The path of destiny was ethereal. Even those who perceived the river of fate dared not say they could grasp it. Only because Su Zimo possessed the primordial chaos bead could he approach fate. Otherwise, at the realm of God Meridian, he would never have had the chance to contend with destiny. So he generally did not believe in talk of fate. Young master was born in the true martial sacred ground, of noble status. But along the way you have scarcely relied on the sect, always forging ahead on your own. In love you have not been fortunate. The one you love you cannot meet, and though your hearts align, you cannot be together. Miss Jing tapped the table gently with her hand, continuing, "Young master was born with his own mission. This road is destined to be walked to the end. And that end is one word." She slightly parted her lips, smiling as she spoke a single word. "Demon." Su Zimo slowly raised his head. Though only a few words, they startled him deeply. Those simple sentences encompassed his entire life. He realized that before her, there seemed to be no secrets. Other than his rebirth and God world, nothing seemed hidden. "Does what Jinger said sound true?" Miss Jing asked with a smile. "You do have some ability," Su Zimo admitted. "Just some?" She looked up, her beautiful eyes shimmering, red lips parting slightly as she exhaled fragrant breath. That sight was indescribably alluring. "Actually, I wanted to ask about the blood-rune beasts," Su Zimo said, feeling a bit uneasy. "One fleeting spring night, and young master only wishes to exchange a few trivial words?" Miss Jing leaned against the pavilion's edge. Her figure was fully displayed, slender legs resting on the pavilion chair. "Then what do you want me to do?" Su Zimo asked. "I want young master to be a beast for once." Miss Jing laughed. She rose, her lotus gown blooming as she stepped lightly. Her jade hands rested on Su Zimo's shoulders as she bent slightly, her warm breath brushing his ear. In this world, there are true gentlemen, false gentlemen, petty men, and true villains. Which do you think you are? She smiled. I see young master preserves himself well, now with heart belonging to one. But as a man, have you never had desire? Has the thought of lust never stirred? Or is it that Jinger's beauty is unworthy, failing to sway you? Su Zimo stared at her, silent for a long, long time. Finally, he spoke slowly. I treat you as a friend, yet you want to take off my pants? Pfft. Hearing this, Miss Jing couldn't help but laugh. That laugh was like snow melting, brighter than all else. It seemed that a true beauty made everything beautiful. Every movement carried irresistible charm. Does young master truly have no other thoughts? Miss Jing continued. Just tell me about the blood-rune beasts, Su Zimo said calmly. Hasn't young master already found a way? Why come to ask me? She replied. Su Zimo looked at her seriously. You investigated me? Some things cannot be investigated. This is Jinger's innate ability. I don't believe it. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. He had jumped out of the river of fate, many things others could never know. But this is the truth, whether young master believes or not. Miss Jing smiled. In that case, I'll take my leave. Su Zimo stood, preparing to go. Young master, Miss Jing called softly from behind. Chapter 949, Would Martial God. Su Zimo stopped his steps and looked at her. Your heartbeat was very fast just now. I could feel it, Jing said with a smile. On the surface you pretend to be serious, but your heart was moved, wasn't it? What is your name? Su Zimo asked. My name is just one character, Jing. Jing smiled. You can call me Jinger. Come to think of it, you're the first man who has called me that. Oh. Su Zimo nodded slightly, then turned to leave again. If you ever need anything, you can always come to me. Jing's voice sounded from behind. Jinger will always sweep the couch to welcome you. Watching Su Zimo's back grow further away, her lips curved into a seductive smile. Walking out from the pavilion, the breeze gently stirred, and the sound of the wind chimes on the curtain still seemed to echo in his ears. Su Zimo stopped. Just now, his Dao heart had felt somewhat unsteady. He had always thought that matters of men and women were not so important to him. Except for Lan Kuer, he had never felt anything for another woman. Cultivation in the later stages is all about cultivating this Dao heart, tempered thousands of times, through the rolling red dust, and remaining unchanged in the end. But after all, he was still human, and could not escape the 7 emotions and 6 desires. When faced with a flawless, peerless beauty, offered to him to pick, he still could not avoid being moved. Even though he restrained himself and suppressed the impulse, the wavering of the Dao heart was still a wavering. Outside, the sky had already grown dark. But inside this elegant garden, it was still as bright as day. Every so often, colorful little lanterns hung from plum trees or bamboo stalks. The glowing lanterns reflected against the blossoms, adding more charm. Even at night, the place was full of people moving about, lively and bustling. Those staying the night here were countless. Some even treated it as home, admiring flowers and listening to the zither by day, and at night going to places of pleasure, indulging in the pleasures of love, living freely. How many such moments does life afford? Once the hair turns white, there is only empty regret. Oh, have you heard? Something big has happened again in our city of destruction. In a nearby pavilion, a few people were chatting. Su Zimo was close enough and deliberately listened. What big thing? Someone asked curiously. You all should know who sealed the blood rune space in our city of destruction, right? That person said. Of course, it was the Holy Progenitor. Do you even need to ask? I heard that the Holy Progenitor's true God sword has been found, someone said in a low voice. What nonsense! Wasn't the true God sword already split apart, its fragments scattered across primordial heartlands? Who could find it? Anyway, now the whole city is buzzing with the rumor that someone named Su Zimo has gathered the true God sword, become the disciple of the Holy Progenitor. and has come to City of Destruction to completely and forever resolve the Blood Rune space. Really? Who is this Su Zimo? I don't know either. But the city was already chaotic, and now it's only getting more chaotic. Chaos is good. Otherwise, how could it be called City of Destruction? Someone laughed, clearly not concerned. Hearing this conversation, Su Zimo shook his head and chuckled. To let that girl spread rumors. I didn't expect it to get so exaggerated. He had originally asked Ji Ruobing to spread the word that he possessed the true God sword. But in less than a day, the story had turned into him being the Holy Progenitor's disciple and ready to destroy the Blood Rune space forever. Actually, Su Zimo always had a guess in his heart. It was extremely difficult to open the seal of the Blood Rune space. Even if blood beasts attacked the seal for millions of years, it might not work. Moreover, the Lord of Destruction stood guard outside. If there were any issues with the seal, they could be observed and repaired at any time. That a few Blood Rune beasts managed to escape this time was already a great stroke of luck. The key to opening the Blood Rune space should be the true God sword. This was Su Zimo's speculation. Whether it was true or not would depend on events. If those Blood Rune beasts knew the true God sword was in his hands, they wouldn't need him to find them. They might come to him on their own. That would be called waiting at the tree for the hare. Su Zimo's target was the Blood Rune beasts, and he did not want unnecessary trouble caused by the true God sword. Since leaving the garden, he had not seen that little fat man again. Although curious about his identity, Su Zimo did not bother to search for him. He left the garden and found an inn in the southern part of City of Destruction. He opened 2 rooms. There he arranged to meet Ji Ruobing. Ordering the innkeeper to bring out good food and wine, he looked at Ji Ruobing with a smile. All done. Now it's your turn to suffer, Ji Ruobing said, drinking a cup of strong liquor. Her brows didn't even twitch as she added, From here on, you'll be busy. Some want the true God sword, and some want the Holy Progenitor's legacy. Then let's wait and see when the fish take the bait, Su Zimo said with a smile. The two were eating when suddenly several armored men entered the inn. Their target was clearly Su Zimo. So fast, Su Zimo said in surprise. He had just mentioned trouble, and here it was already. Lord Su, the Wood Martial God wishes to meet you, said the leader of the armored men calmly. In City of Destruction, aside from the Lord of Destruction, the 8 martial gods held absolute authority. Their words were the iron law of the city. What's the matter? Su Zimo asked. The commander did not say, only that you must come with us, the armored man replied. Su Zimo glanced at Ji Ruobing. She waved her hand with a smile and said, Go on. I'm feeling tired anyway. I'll return to my room to sleep. Following the armored men, Su Zimo arrived at the deepest part of the city. This seemed to be the barracks of City of Destruction. All around there were no ordinary people, only armored soldiers. They led him to a tent, then withdrew. Su Zimo looked around briefly, then entered. At the center stood a desk, with several scrolls scattered across it. On the other side of the desk sat a handsome middle-aged man. He wore a light green robe, though not quite sword-browed and star-eyed. His features were proper, and he was indeed a fine-looking man. Sit, the man said with a smile, putting down the scroll in his hand as he saw Su Zimo enter. I don't know why the Wood Martial God is looking for me? Su Zimo asked directly. You're clever, you should already know. The Wood Martial God smiled. Because of the true God sword, Su Zimo said. The Wood Martial God nodded slightly and replied, I more or less understand your idea, using the true God sword as bait, to lure the Blood Rune beasts to you. Chapter 950, Assassination. Hearing Wood Martial God's words, Su Zimo did not refute. This kind of thing belonged to an open scheme. Even if the other side knew, they had no choice but to come. For the sake of the Blood Rune beasts, for freedom, the true God sword was the most crucial item. Have you thought about it? Your plan is too reckless. What if it fails, what then? Wood Martial God looked at Su Zimo and said sternly, Once the Blood Rune beasts break out of the Blood Rune space, it will be a fatal blow to the entire land of destruction. even to the primordial heartlands. Do you still want the aftershocks of the end of the legendary era to descend again? You called me here just to say this? Su Zimo asked back. By rights, the true God sword is yours. I shouldn't decide how you handle it. Wood Martial God paused and said, but this matter is of great importance and cannot afford a single mistake. So I hope you will hand over the true God sword to us for safekeeping. And then, hearing this, Su Zimo gave a slight laugh, his expression unreadable. Rest assured, I don't covet anything. When those blood-rune beasts are captured and the danger eliminated, I will return it to you, Wood Martial God explained. And if I refuse, you want to snatch it by force. Su Zimo continued to smile. For the sake of the city of destruction, what harm is there in seizing it by force? Wood Martial God said forcefully. I will not allow those blood-rune beasts even the slightest chance of escaping. Not even a sliver. Then you can try, Su Zimo said calmly, not angry at all. The two locked eyes. Su Zimo's eyes were covered with a black cloth, so one could not see his emotions. But Wood Martial God glared, eyes wide, completely unlike his handsome appearance, like a frenzied lion. Commander Wood, don't be angry. Just then a soft laugh came from the side. We bear no grudge against each other. At the very least, our goal is the same, dealing with the blood-rune beasts. We should be standing on the same line. Su Zimo turned his head and saw a man in a dark robe walking over with a smile. The man had thick brows, big eyes, and a tall, sturdy build, looking to be about 1.9 meters tall. Standing before him, he gave off a strong sense of oppression. This young brother, let's get acquainted. You may call me Commander Dark, the man said with a smile. Dark Martial God? Su Zimo asked. He had heard from the little fatty earlier that the City of Destruction was currently guarded by 3 martial gods, all mobilized just to deal with the blood-rune beasts. It's just a title. How could we truly bear the weight of the words martial god? Dark Martial God laughed. Just call me Commander Dark. I will not hand over the true God sword. If you want to take it by force, 2 against 1, or even bring your entire camp of soldiers, I will take you all on, Su Zimo said indifferently. You? Wood Martial God grew even more furious. Commander Wood, don't be angry. Dark Martial God turned to Su Zimo. He smiled and said, May I discuss a bit with Commander Wood, then come back to negotiate with you? Please go ahead. Su Zimo shrugged. The two walked into the inner part of the tent and talked for about 5 minutes. Finally, Wood Martial God walked out with a displeased expression. We'll each take a step back. Commander Wood looked at Su Zimo and said again, We won't demand the true God sword, but you must cooperate with us to capture the blood-rune beasts. How do I cooperate? Su Zimo asked. Since you want to hold the true God sword, then use it as bait, Wood Martial God said. We will protect you from the shadows. At critical moments, you must follow our commands. Like the mantis stalking the cicada, with the oriole behind. Following your commands is impossible, Su Zimo said directly. But if you want to protect me from the shadows, I agree. However, I have one more request. What request? Wood Martial God frowned. I want to meet the Lord of Destruction, Su Zimo said. He wanted to enter the blood-rune space, and for that he would certainly need the Lord of Destruction's approval. The City Lord does not see anyone, Wood Martial God snorted coldly. That's not an absolute statement. Dark Martial God quickly smoothed things over at the side. He smiled and said, If we capture the blood-rune beasts together, you will naturally share half the credit, and then you can gain an audience with the City Lord. Then it's settled. Su Zimo nodded. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. Let me tell you the current situation briefly, Dark Martial God said. As far as we know, 3 blood-rune beasts have escaped. Stay alert. Su Zimo nodded, left the military camp, and headed straight for the inn. In truth, even without their help, he could kill the blood-rune beasts. But for now, he didn't want to clash with the City of Destruction. First, if they fought, the ones happiest would be the blood-rune beasts. Second, since he wanted to enter the ancient celestial court, he would inevitably have to deal with them, It wasn't necessary to make things too hostile. Watching Su Zimo leave, Wood Martial God finally withdrew his gaze, turned to Dark Martial God, and asked, "Why did you stop me just now? Your temper still hasn't changed." Dark Martial God snorted. "You know I cultivate the power of darkness, which can stir the dark side within the human heart. But when I just tested him, it was like my power fell into the sea, with no reaction at all." At this, Dark Martial God's eyes narrowed, his expression full of meaning. He continued, "There are only two possible results. Either his heart is filled with light, open and clear, with no gaps for darkness to seep in. But do you think that's possible? Or this person is unfathomable, beyond my ability to shake in the slightest?" Hearing this, Wood Martial God looked somewhat incredulous. "You're saying he's very strong? How is that possible? Why impossible? Even in the city of destruction, he still dares to confront you. What does that show?" "Confidence," Dark Martial God said indifferently. Wood Martial God lowered his head, sinking into thought. Leaving the camp, Su Zimo walked straight toward the inn. Because the camp was in a remote place, after coming out he saw almost no one. At this time, an old man with a hunched back and ragged clothes appeared not far ahead. "Sir, please have pity, give me some money," the old man begged as he walked toward Su Zimo. But before Su Zimo could say anything, the old man's hand suddenly moved like lightning, turning into a blade, slashing straight for Su Zimo's neck. Su Zimo frowned slightly and punched. With a bang, his fist exploded the old man's body into a mist of blood. So weak, even Su Zimo himself was a little surprised. But the fact was before his eyes. The old man had died so easily. He sensed the surroundings slightly, nothing unusual. Then he continued walking toward the inn. When he reached the main street, the surroundings finally lit up brightly. Chapter 951 Mountain God Descends. Nighttime in the city of destruction was still bustling. Back at the inn, however, it was the opposite, rather quiet. There weren't many people inside. Ji Ruobing seemed to have already gone to rest, and only the innkeeper sat at the front desk, fiddling with an abacus. "You've returned, honored guest," the innkeeper greeted with a smile when he saw Su Zimo walk in. "Why is it so quiet today?" Su Zimo asked casually. "Someone rented out the place," the innkeeper replied softly. From the smile on his face, it was clear he had made good money. When Su Zimo was about to head upstairs, the innkeeper quickly stopped him and pointed toward the second floor. Smiling, he said, "The one who booked the place is waiting for you upstairs." "For me?" Su Zimo asked in surprise. "You're not mistaken?" "Of course not," the innkeeper insisted. "Go on up and take a look." Su Zimo climbed the stairs with a mix of doubt and curiosity. Just as he reached the turn of the stairway, he twitched his nose slightly. A faint fragrance. He already had a good idea of who it was. At the street-facing window on the second floor, Miss Jing was sitting there. She had changed her appearance. Wearing a heavy red robe, she looked quite different from when he last saw her. Her hair was now golden, her eyes surrounded by dark smoky makeup. Her eyelashes were long, and this time her lips were painted a bright crimson. Her aura was seductive. Her figure was curvy, the red robe slipping to reveal glimpses of skin, already bordering on indecent. She leaned lazily against the window, staring at Su Zimo with a half-smile. "Does Miss Jing need something?" Su Zimo asked as he walked up. "Why not call me Jinger?" she teased with a smile. "Not close enough." Su Zimo shook his head. "Then let's get more acquainted." She laughed softly, sticking out her tongue to lick her red lips. "If you have something to say, just say it. Don't act like a whore," Su Zimo said, waving his hand. "What's wrong? Is it because my status is lowly? I'd still be willing to be your lover, Zimo." Miss Jing looked pitiful. "You'd better stick with calling me young Master Su. Hearing Zimo gives me the creeps." Su Zimo flatly refused. "But I like calling you Zimo." Miss Jing's big eyes shimmered as she stared at him, never once looking away. Su Zimo glanced at her calmly, then turned and prepared to leave. You heartless man. Do you really not think of me? Miss Jing's expression suddenly turned sorrowful. Since yesterday, I've thought of nothing but you. I thought you disliked the way I looked then, so today I changed my makeup just for you. Who knew you'd still not even spare me a glance? Too much overacting, Su Zimo said, still unmoved. They had known each other only one day. There couldn't possibly be such deep feelings. You're so cold. No fun at all, Miss Jing chuckled, pouring herself tea and then pouring a cup for Su Zimo. Let's talk business then. Those so-called martial gods of the City of Destruction came to see you. You're well informed, Su Zimo nodded. I came to warn you. Those people can't be trusted. Be on guard, Miss Jing said. I know. Su Zimo nodded slightly. No gratitude at all, Miss Jing pouted. Fine, then I'll leave. She stood, walked over to Su Zimo, and leaned close. Whispering against his ear, she said, If you really don't want me to call you Zimo, I can change it. How about I call you Daddy? But only in bed. After saying that, Miss Jing gave him a flirtatious smile and walked downstairs. Her faint fragrance still lingered in the air. Light but persistent. Her words did leave Su Zimo in thought, though. In the end, others couldn't be relied upon. He would have to count on himself. When he returned to his room, he noticed Ji Ruobing leaning against the railing outside her door. She looked at him with a playful smile. Done meeting with your lover? What? Jealous? Su Zimo asked. Don't talk nonsense. Ji Ruobing shot him a glare before returning to her room. Su Zimo also went back to his room. Tonight, he didn't plan to cultivate, but instead intended to use the great dream scripture to temper his Tao heart. This technique could simulate the passing of time, evolving countless lifetimes. Though in the end it was nothing more than an illusion, a fleeting dream, its impact on the Tao heart was very real. Now that even someone like Jing could sway his state of mind, he felt a sense of danger. It was the perfect opportunity to sharpen his Tao heart through her influence. The night passed in silence. When Su Zimo awoke from the dream, the sky outside was already bright. His eyes carried a trace of fatigue. In the outside world, only one night had passed, but in the dream he had experienced countless nights. He sniffed the air. There was a faint scent of blood. Opening his door, he found 3 corpses lying in the corridor. He recognized them all. One was the innkeeper, the other 2 the inn's attendants. Ji Ruobing was sitting downstairs, waving him over. She had clearly been up early. What happened? Su Zimo asked in confusion. Last night at midnight, they tried to sneak into your room. You were sleeping soundly, so I dealt with them myself, Ji Ruobing explained. More demons crawling out of the woodwork, Su Zimo muttered. What are you planning today? Ji Ruobing asked. Before Su Zimo could answer, there was a loud boom as the inn's main doors were blasted open. A group of people in black and white robes stormed inside. Their leader wore a mask divided into black and white halves. He swept his gaze across the room before fixing on Su Zimo. You are Su Zimo? He asked coldly. Moon Shadow Race? Su Zimo guessed from their clothing. You've got guts. You killed our people and didn't even bother to run, the masked man said harshly. Not worth running, Su Zimo waved with a smile. Before he finished speaking, another explosion sounded, this one from beneath the ground. Cracks spread across the floor as a colossal stone statue forced its way up from below the inn. The mountain god descends, kneel before him. A booming voice echoed throughout. Chapter 952, Lion Mansion. Watching such a huge statue emerge from the ground, everyone was startled. But soon after, they all reacted. So it is an elder of the mountain god race. The man from the moon shadow race was the first to speak. I wonder what business brings the mountain god race here? This person disturbed our worship ritual. We have come specifically to seize him and take him back for judgment. The statue opened its mouth and spoke human words calmly. That explanation doesn't quite hold. Everything should have an order. The masked man laughed. Our patriarch's son was killed. No matter what, he must first come with us. Seeing the two actually fighting over who would take him, Su Zimo shook his head and laughed. The temptation of the true God sword really was great. They said it was revenge, but that was only one side of it. The bigger reason was that they also wanted the true God sword. Both men coldly snorted. The masked man said indifferently, "Then it will depend on our abilities. Whoever captures him will have him." "Just as I intended," the statue replied coldly as well. It stretched out its hand, and instantly heaven and earth collapsed. Endless power surged around its body, pressing down toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo clenched his large hand, as if grasping the entire void. He threw a direct punch. The aftermath of the explosion completely destroyed the inn, and one of the statue's arms was shattered by Su Zimo's fist. A mantis catches a cicada, but what if the prey is a tiger? Su Zimo laughed lightly. He pressed forward, each step soaring skyward, his astonishing power erupting from his body. He charged toward the statue. His speed was so fast he became afterimages. Another punch struck, and before the statue could even react, its heart was pierced through. Seeing this, the masked man was slightly shocked. He quickly shouted, "I'll help you." Black and white energy swirled around him as he transformed into a stream of light attacking Su Zimo. "Piss off!" Su Zimo stepped forward and kicked him flying. He then rushed at the statue, using both hands to smash downward. The massive head of the statue was directly crushed in midair. "Ah!" A miserable scream burst from the statue. "You have offended the mountain god. You will eventually face punishment." "That's not for you to decide," Su Zimo said coldly. With the statue destroyed, dust flew everywhere, leaving ruins behind. Su Zimo turned his head and saw that the members of the Moon Shadow race were all trembling. "Go!" the masked man shouted, fleeing toward the city gates. Su Zimo waved his right hand and said, "Since you're here, stay." The overwhelming force fell from above like a waterfall, suppressing them all. Immediately, the sound of a sword resounded. Before anyone even saw the blade drawn, heads rolled, blood grew cold. Su Zimo looked around. Apart from the ruins, Ji Ruobing was nowhere to be seen. Su Zimo chuckled lightly. These blood-rune beasts were indeed cunning, using others to stall him, then secretly kidnapping Ji Ruobing. Now Su Zimo had set himself as bait, a completely open scheme. But these blood-rune beasts had chosen his companion as the breakthrough point, hoping to force him into submission. He stretched out his right hand, and a faint white energy coiled in his palm. "Tribulation," Su Zimo muttered. The energy turned into a line floating ahead, pointing the way. Ji Ruobing's true fate was the Myriad Tribulation Cone, a very special type of true fate. His power was tribulation. Earlier, the two had agreed to leave a trace of spirit force for each other. If one encountered danger, the other could quickly find them. Moreover, Ji Ruobing's spirit trace was tribulation, very different from ordinary spirit force, and hard to detect. He didn't speak to the martial gods in the shadows, though he knew they must be watching. But even when Ji Ruobing was kidnapped, they didn't appear, which itself revealed their stance. Following the line of tribulation energy, he tracked it all the way to the main street of the Eastern District, the most prosperous part of the city. Could they really be hiding here? Su Zimo frowned slightly. Most people would assume blood-rune beasts hid in dark or remote places. No one would think they would be here openly. Su Zimo raised his head. Before him stood a grand mansion. Brown walls surrounded it. At the gate crouched two lions, not stone lions, but real ones. Their red fur looked violent. They lay quietly by the entrance, their half-closed eyes radiating beastly might that intimidated passing pedestrians. The main gate was crimson red. Above it hung a black plaque with several golden characters shining brightly. Lion Mansion. Just as Su Zimo stood at the gate observing, the figure of the wood martial god approached. Su Zimo glanced at him, unsurprised. His every move now tugged at the strings in many people's hearts. "You found a lead?" the wood martial god asked. "What is this place?" Su Zimo asked. "You mean the Lion Mansion?" the wood martial god laughed. This is one of the strongest forces in Destruction City. Unlike gangs such as the Minotaur Gang or the Moon Shadow Gang, the Lion Mansion's master plays both sides. A fifth of the city's industries bear his mark. No one manages this? Su Zimo asked curiously. With such development, one day this man might control the entire city, threatening the Lord of Destruction's rule. The city lord forbids us from provoking them. As long as rules aren't broken, they can develop freely, the Wood Martial God shrugged. The master of Lion Mansion is called the Mad Lion. His real name is Shi Qianshan. His background is quite mysterious. Can we go inside and take a look? Su Zimo asked. Looking is fine, but this man has sharp eyes and lofty pride. He likely won't see us as worthy. The Wood Martial God laughed. Even you? Su Zimo asked curiously. After all, the Wood Martial God's status in the city was second only to the Lord of Destruction himself. The Wood Martial God just smiled faintly, saying nothing more. Then let's go in, Su Zimo said. The Wood Martial God nodded. Looking toward the two lions, he said, Go announce that the Wood Martial God comes to visit your master. The lion on the left opened its eyes, calmly looked at the Wood Martial God, then let out a low roar. That roar seemed to carry some kind of message. Before long, a man in a red robe walked out of the mansion. What brings the Wood Martial God to my Lion Mansion today? Chapter 953, The Sealed Space. The man in the red robe smiled pleasantly. The Wood Martial God snorted coldly, not replying. Su Zimo could tell there was bad blood between the two, so he smiled and said, We came to visit the master of the Lion Mansion. The manor master is busy. He probably doesn't have time to host you. The red-robed man replied with a smile. That's fine. If the manor master is busy, he doesn't need to host us. Su Zimo continued. For a long time, I have admired the majesty of the Lion Mansion. Today I came only on a whim, to take a look and satisfy my admiration. We'll just take a walk around and leave. Would that be acceptable? Hearing Su Zimo's words, the smile on the red-robed man's face did not fade. He seemed to be thinking about something. Red Lion, we are here under the orders of the city lord. Don't go too far, the Wood Martial God said from the side. How would I dare? The red-robed man chuckled, stepping aside. Since it's the city lord's will, then please come in. The two exchanged a glance and followed the red-robed man inside. After entering the manor, the red-robed man waved his hand, and a man in a servant's attire, wearing a hat, walked over. I still have business today, so I'll let him take you two around the manor, the red-robed man said with a smile. Su Zimo nodded, not objecting. When the red-robed man left, the servant came forward and asked, Where would you two like to go first? It doesn't matter, we'll just stroll around, Su Zimo said with a smile. Following the guidance of the Aura line, he walked ahead casually but deliberately. Who was that man just now? Su Zimo asked in a low voice. He's known as Red Lion. His real name is unknown, the Wood Martial God explained. He is the steward of the Lion Mansion. Though only a steward, his position is second only to the master, Mad Lion. On the surface, he manages trivial affairs of the manor, but in reality, he controls the entire force of the Lion Mansion. You could say he is the right hand of Mad Lion. You two have a feud? Su Zimo asked curiously. The Wood Martial God was silent for a moment, then nodded. I guard the entire city of destruction, but the Lion Mansion always does illegal things in the shadows. Yet they are extremely cautious, and I can never catch them with evidence. Over time, we became mortal enemies. As he said this, the Wood Martial God looked at Su Zimo again and asked, Did you find anything by coming here? While they were talking, they arrived at a courtyard. And at this place, the aura line in Su Zimo's hand dispersed. The courtyard looked ordinary. From the outside, it had several illusion trees planted within. These trees were mainly used for assisting formations, and they were fairly rare. The surrounding walls were light red. What is this place? Su Zimo asked the servant following them. Just an ordinary empty courtyard. The servant replied with a smile. Does anyone live here? Suzimo asked. No, not for now. The servant shook his head. Let's take a look, Suzimo said to the wood martial god. The two stepped into the courtyard. As soon as they entered, the wood martial god furrowed his brows tightly. Something's wrong. Suzimo also frowned. Once inside, he felt the surrounding aura start to riot. The space before him rippled, at times breaking apart, at times restoring itself. Go! The wood martial god barked, rushing toward the courtyard's exit. But in the next instant, a powerful force slammed into him, throwing him back. Then 4 beams of blood-red light rose from the corners of the courtyard, shooting into the sky. A restriction was cast over the Lion Mansion. No matter how much turmoil happened inside the courtyard, the outside world could not see it. The moment the 4 blood-red beams rose, Suzimo felt the space before him change. The servant at the entrance now wore a cryptic smile on his face. This was a space of blood. Blood stretched endlessly, with hardly anything else visible. The void around rippled in waves, as if an ocean of blood were surging with countless waves. What is this place? The wood martial god said in shock. This space saw no daylight, pressing down with suffocating weight. Suzimo, however, looked remarkably calm. Suddenly, the sound of clapping rang from the void without warning. The space in front of them tore open, and with the Red Lion steward leading the way, a man with fiery red hair walked through. This man wore a red robe with a roaring lion emblazoned on it. His body was burly, his hair thick and wild, his eyes entirely black. His beard was long, and his ears spread wide like screens. Welcome to the Lion Mansion, the man laughed loudly. Shi Qianshan, the wood martial god said slowly, word by word, staring at him. It's been a long time, Mukan, Shi Qianshan laughed. So this must have been the true name of the wood martial god. What do you mean by this? The wood martial god asked, looking at the scene around them. Is it not obvious enough? Shi Qianshan laughed. Is it that I haven't made myself clear? Or are you simply a fool? You dare imprison me? Aren't you afraid of the city lord? The wood martial god said angrily. As long as I obtain the true god sword and break the seal of the blood-rune beasts, what does the Lord of Destruction amount to? Shi Qianshan roared with laughter. Unless the holy progenitor returns, who in this entire progenitor heartlands can stop us? At this, Shi Qianshan looked at Suzimo. I believe you're a smart man, he said. Where is Ji Ruobing? Suzimo asked. Shi Qianshan waved his hand, and an image appeared in the air before them. In the image, Ji Ruobing was also trapped in a blood-colored space. Around her, a group of lion-beast humanoid monsters were fighting fiercely. Well then, draw the true god sword, and both you and your friend will be free to leave, Shi Qianshan said with a smile. But I am rather stubborn, Suzimo replied with a smile. You don't look very smart. Let me help you become smarter, Shi Qianshan said, apparently unwilling to waste more words. He waved his right hand, and the sea of blood around them began to churn violently. Countless blood-red lions with scarlet eyes leapt out of the sea of blood. They bared their teeth and roared furiously at Suzimo and the wood martial god. Oh, by the way, a reminder. Don't bother thinking about destroying this blood space, Shi Qianshan added, because this blood space was evolved from the seal of the blood rune space itself. You are not capable. Manor Master Mad Lion, I don't understand, the wood martial god said from the side. You are not of the blood rune beasts. Why help them like this? There are many things you don't understand. Must I explain them all to you? Shi Qianshan chuckled lightly. He waved his right hand again, and countless lions charged at the two of them. The lions seemed endless, surging forward without end. Chapter 954. I say you know. The wood martial god waved his right hand, and the power of wood attributes surged in both hands. Centered on him, countless withered trees erupted from the ground, their bodies swaying like demons and monsters. As the lions all pounced forward, the wood martial god's great hand fell, and all of the withered trees burst forth, some binding the lions, others knocking them flying. The lions came endlessly, and so too did the withered trees continue to emerge. But it was clear the wood martial god was under great pressure, sweat already covering his forehead. Master Su, this place is a revised version of the sealed blood rune space, the wood martial god said, looking at Su Zimo. I suspect the true god sword would have a suppressive effect here. You could try it. No need. Su Zimo waved his hand, looking toward Shi Qianshan and said, You want the true god sword, right? Then first bring out the blood rune beast. I'll meet it before we talk. Hearing Su Zimo's words, Shi Qianshan was silent for a moment. What's wrong? What are you afraid of? Su Zimo smiled. At this point, are you still so cautious? It's not caution. Shi Qianshan shook his head and smiled. Looking at Red Lion beside him, he said, You go out and guard outside first. I have something to say to him alone. Red Lion didn't ask further, nodded, and left directly. Immediately, Shi Qianshan looked at Su Zimo, grinning as he said, It's not fear, but the one you want to meet is right in front of you. As he laughed, he began tearing the skin off his body. From scalp to face, down to his whole body, it was as though he wore a suit of leather clothing. After ripping it all away, standing before Su Zimo was clearly another person entirely. You are not Shi Qianshan, the wood martial god said in surprise. Shocking, I know. The man chuckled lightly. He stood about 1.8 meters tall, his skin slightly pale, his eyes like dead fish, his nose bridge tall. He had short hair, a scar on his forehead. Even his clothes were the simplest standard long-sleeved outfit. I should have realized earlier, the wood martial god suddenly understood, reacting. Your disguises are so strong. You can imitate almost anyone. This lion mansion truly is a good hiding place. I just didn't expect that even that fellow Red Lion was tricked by you. The man seemed uninterested in the wood martial god, instead looking at Su Zimo and saying, Well, now I'm here. Hand over the true god sword. My patience is limited. Good. Since you're here, Su Zimo laughed softly. At once his aura exploded, and he directly charged at the man. I knew you'd do this. The man wasn't surprised, but instead stepped forward, punching toward Su Zimo. With a loud boom, both figures were forced back several steps. Again, Su Zimo shouted coldly. Power of creation surged from his fists, his shadows multiplying in the void. The speed created continuous sonic booms echoing across the sky. Boom, boom, boom. For a time, the two fought at speeds beyond the eye's ability to follow. Countless fragments of void shattered apart, but ultimately Su Zimo proved superior. With a sudden flash, he appeared behind his opponent, fists surging with rolling force, slamming into the man's back. A strange blood spurted from the man's mouth. Wiping his lips, he turned and smiled. I underestimated you. You're still not enough, Su Zimo shouted coldly. His fist smashed forward again. The man struggled to keep up, and within only a few moves, Su Zimo sent him flying again with another heavy punch. Weren't there supposed to be 3? Su Zimo said. Bring them all out. The man didn't answer. He wiped away the blood at his lips, as a violent aura erupted from within him. Behind him, a mass of blood condensed into a huge face. It was a horrifying monster's face. The face was thin and skeletal, blood dripping from its eyes and all 7 orifices. Its appearance was as grotesque and terrifying as possible. The man opened his mouth, splitting it nearly a meter wide, fangs gleaming. The sound he emitted was a beast's growl. He lunged at Su Zimo. At this moment, he was nothing but a beast, no longer showing any trace of humanity. Su Zimo was not to be outdone. The colossal heaven-shattering giant behind him rose to its full towering height. With a great sweep of its massive palm, it collided with the raging man. An endless, crushing force cascaded down from the heavens. Dust filled the air as the man was directly smashed into the ground. The earth bore the imprint of his figure. Just then, another figure flew over from the distance. Wearing white robes, though slightly disheveled, she carried a cold, aloof air. It was Ji Ruobing. "How are you here?" Ji Ruobing looked at Su Zimo, surprised. "It's a long story." Su Zimo shook his head slightly. As Ji Ruobing approached him, Su Zimo suddenly raised his right hand. Behind him, the heaven-shattering giant's massive palm fell down together with it. "Are you insane?" Ji Ruobing screamed in terror. "Although your disguise is convincing, appearance alone isn't enough. Some sense cannot be changed." Su Zimo shook his head. The palm came down, and the second blood-rune beast, unable to dodge in time, was crushed into the ground. Su Zimo held the Codex of Life and Death in one hand, and the Brush of Life and Death in the other. Flipping to the first page, countless chains of life and death shot out, binding the two buried figures. The clashing sound of iron echoed. Chains wrapped around the two monsters, dragging them out from beneath the ground. These monsters looked alike, their faces grotesque and terrifying. Before, they had appeared in human form, but now their true forms emerged, bodies nearly 100 meters long. Their flesh was covered in countless dense black dots, enough to make anyone with trypophobia unable to look. "Well done," the wood martial god laughed behind him. "We've finally caught them. Now we can explain to the city lord." He smiled, walking toward Su Zimo. "Where is Ji Ruobing?" Su Zimo asked calmly, looking at the two struggling creatures. "Kill us, and you'll never find her." The blood-rune beasts roared, laughing wildly. Su Zimo frowned slightly, his chains tightening, pulling the two beasts toward the Codex of Life and Death. "Master Su, don't be rash," the wood martial god quickly said. "They must be delivered to the city lord. There's no rush to kill them." "Then you tell me, where is Ji Ruobing?" Su Zimo asked, turning toward him. "We can interrogate them slowly," the wood martial god replied. "I don't want to interrogate. I want you to answer me." Su Zimo shook his head and continued. "How would I know?" The wood martial god forced a smile. "You know?" Su Zimo looked at him with a half-smile. "I say you know, so you know." Chapter 955 Lord of Destruction. "Young Master Su, don't joke around," the wood martial god laughed. The next moment his entire body turned into a flash of lightning, directly attacking Su Zimo. "This farce should have ended long ago." Su Zimo slightly shook his head. At the feet of the wood martial god, chains that had already been buried beforehand erupted at the moment he struck, instantly wrapping and binding him. "How can this be?" The wood martial god struggled desperately, his face full of anger and shock. "Stop struggling," Su Zimo said with a smile on the side. "How did you see through me?" the wood martial god asked in surprise. "I didn't see through you. I just never believed you from the start," Su Zimo replied. "Impossible, my disguise is flawless. Even the other martial gods didn't see through it." The wood martial god still couldn't believe it. "When I was fighting those two earlier, what were you doing?" Su Zimo said. "Watching. I was fighting. You were standing aside watching the show. And also, when the mountain god race and the moon shadow race were fighting, you never appeared. But as soon as I came to this lion mansion, you suddenly jumped out." Hearing this, the wood martial god was silent for a while. Then he looked at Su Zimo and said, "How about we discuss something?" "Discuss what?" Su Zimo asked. "What is your purpose in coming to the land of destruction? Our blood rune has no enmity with you. Surely you didn't come specifically to catch us." The wood martial god continued. "You asked me earlier about blood rune space. Perhaps we can talk about it. Now that you mention it, I just remembered." Su Zimo patted his head and replied, "How long have you been in blood rune space?" "Since I can remember. My clan has been imprisoned there for generations," the wood martial god said calmly. When he thought of this, his eyes reflected a deep hatred. "Tell me about the situation inside blood rune space," Su Zimo said. "You want to go in?" The wood martial god immediately guessed his intention. "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." Su Zimo glanced at him lightly. "If you really want to enter blood rune space, then I think we can cooperate. The Lord of Destruction is our common enemy." The wood martial god chuckled, his emotions no longer as angry as before. How so? Su Zimo asked. The Lord of Destruction guards blood rune space. If you want to enter, you must open the seal. Do you think the Lord of Destruction will agree? The Wood Martial God said. And our blood rune dreams of escaping. So, from a certain point of view, our goals align. What a pity! Su Zimo shook his head slightly. Pity what? The Wood Martial God asked in confusion. Cooperation must be based on equal strength. With wastes like you, what's the point of cooperating? Su Zimo retorted. You? The Wood Martial God's face changed at his words. Then he secretly clenched his teeth, forcing his emotions to calm down. With us, it's still better than you being alone, the Wood Martial God said. You don't need to sway me. Just tell me what's inside blood rune space, Su Zimo said. Originally, the Wood Martial God didn't want to tell him. But thinking further, if Su Zimo truly wanted to enter, perhaps his race might have hope of escaping. He lowered his head, pondering for a while. Finally, he said, I can tell you, the blood rune space is strictly speaking a place of sealing. It's not an ordinary seal. It's not the work of formations, but a sealing domain, the Wood Martial God explained. The ordinary seals we make are all through formations. But back then, what formation could seal our clan? Even the Holy Progenitor couldn't do it. Later, the Holy Progenitor went to the ruins of divinity and obtained this world's sealing domain. This so-called domain is naturally formed, not man-made, but nurtured by heaven and earth itself. And then, Su Zimo asked, the power of this sealing domain I won't elaborate. But it has one major flaw, the Wood Martial God said. That is, it cannot be opened at will. The domain is naturally complete. Every time it is opened, that natural completeness will develop flaws. As flaws increase, the sealing domain will eventually collapse. Besides sealing your blood rune, did the Holy Progenitor seal anything else inside? Su Zimo asked. I haven't seen anything else. The Wood Martial God thought for a moment, then shook his head. I've stayed inside for countless years. Although the place is vast, I've been everywhere. It's always the same, an endless blood sea. I've long been sick of it. Think carefully again. Was there any special place? Su Zimo frowned. A special place? Does golden light count? The Wood Martial God asked. In the north of blood rune space, there is a golden light. We blood rune beasts cannot approach. Whenever we get close, we're hurt by it. Aside from that, I haven't seen anything else. Golden light, Su Zimo pondered. Could it be related to the ancient celestial court? At this thought, Su Zimo took a deep breath. The codex of life and death in his hand shone brightly, directly absorbing the 3 blood rune beasts inside. He looked around at the endless sea of blood, then channeled the power of creation in his right hand, striking hard at the spatial walls around. Without the blood rune beast's power, this illusory space instantly collapsed. It was like a mirror being shattered, and the scene around Su Zimo began to change. He appeared in the courtyard where he had entered the Lion Mansion earlier. Walking out of the courtyard, ahead of him, Ji Ruobing in her white robe seemed to be waiting for him. How did you get out? Su Zimo asked curiously. I was trapped by a formation earlier. Though I wasn't injured, I couldn't escape. Fortunately, someone saved me later. Ji Ruobing pointed to a pavilion in the distance. A man was standing there, hands behind his back, facing away. Su Zimo felt that figure was somewhat familiar. As he walked closer, he realized it was none other than the steward of the Lion Mansion. Red Lion. You! Su Zimo said in surprise. Holy Sun Su, no need to be nervous. Red Lion shook his head. Should I call you Red Lion, or Lord of Destruction? Su Zimo asked. He had never imagined that the Lord of Destruction, who had never once appeared, had been watching everything from the sidelines as if it were a performance. A name is nothing. I've had countless names in my life. Holy Sun Su can call me whatever he likes. The Lord of Destruction smiled. Still, I should thank Holy Sun Su for helping us capture those blood rune beasts. Even without me, they wouldn't have caused much trouble, Su Zimo said calmly. A token of appreciation, it has nothing to do with the scale of the matter. The Lord of Destruction shook his head. Holy Son, are you going to Blood Rune Space? Chapter 956, Inside the Blood Rune Space. Hearing the words of the Lord of Destruction, Su Zimo did not deny it and simply nodded. This was his purpose for coming to the land of destruction. You should already know the general situation. The Blood Rune Space cannot be opened easily, said the Lord of Destruction. First, because if the seal is opened, there is the risk that Blood Rune beasts will take the chance to escape. Second, it would damage the natural completeness of the sealing domain. Is the city lord here to persuade me otherwise? Su Zimo asked with a smile. Not at all. The Lord of Destruction shook his head slightly. I know you must go in and see for yourself, so I thought of a method for you. What method? Su Zimo asked. Devouring, the Lord of Destruction replied. Let the sealing domain devour and assimilate you inside. That way, the seal's natural state will be preserved to the greatest extent, and you can still enter. Seeing the Lord of Destruction hesitate slightly after saying this, Su Zimo said, Continue. It's just that there's a drawback, the Lord of Destruction said thoughtfully. You can go in, but you cannot come out. You'll have to find your own way back. No problem, Su Zimo nodded, agreeing without any hesitation. Just don't go destroying the Blood Rune Space for me, the Lord of Destruction reminded. Su Zimo smiled but did not answer that. In truth, whether the Blood Rune Space survived or not meant nothing to him. But since the Lord of Destruction was helping him enter, he naturally would try not to damage it unnecessarily. Let's go to Mountain City first, said the Lord of Destruction. That was where he lived. Ji Ruobing had also guessed before that the seal of the Blood Rune Space should be there. The group left the Lion Mansion. At first, the Lord of Destruction still bore the appearance of the steward Red Lion, but as they stepped outside, his features began to change. A square face, stern features, hair neatly combed without a strand out of place. A tall, sharp-nosed bridge, and most of all his eyes, carrying a strong oppressive aura. His presence naturally radiated the air of one in authority. As they walked into the Northern City District, midway along the road, Su Zimo saw a woman directly ahead. Miss Jing. She seemed to have changed her look again today. Her long gown was a translucent blue, like seawater, layered in a flowing, glass-like design. The azure dress perfectly outlined her slender waist, leaving nothing to the imagination. She wore light makeup today, just enough to be fitting. Her eyes were lively, her long hair braided into many small strands, with a few soft wisps dancing by her temples in the breeze. On her fair earlobes hung a pair of pale blue, amber-like earrings. Right now she was smiling as she looked at the approaching group. The Lord of Destruction paused slightly, then greeted respectfully, Lady Jing. It was clear he held this Lady Jing in high regard. I'm here to see him, Lady Jing said, pointing at Su Zimo. Then you two talk, we'll wait over here, the Lord of Destruction said with a casual smile. At the side, Ji Ruobing shot Lady Jing a sharp glare before stepping away as well. Do you need something? Su Zimo asked, sounding rather weary. Young master, it's been a few days. Did you miss me? Lady Jing smiled. Didn't we just see each other the day before yesterday? Su Zimo replied flatly. In your words, isn't it a day apart feels like 3 autumns? Lady Jing laughed. If you have something to say, then say it, Su Zimo said impatiently. You heartless man. I know you're going into the Blood Rune Space, so I came especially to warn you, Lady Jing said, giving Su Zimo a reproachful glance. Her tone was full of charm. Like a lotus in full bloom, her expression was just right. Any ordinary man would already be lost in her allure. What warning? Su Zimo asked. Your information network is truly impressive. He had killed those 3 blood rune beasts and had only just finished speaking with the Lord of Destruction. Yet this woman was already waiting for him, knowingly or not. Such a channel of information was striking. Unless the Lord of Destruction had told her beforehand, Su Zimo found it hard to imagine otherwise. Because I care about you, I naturally pay more attention, Lady Jing said. I know the inside of the blood rune space. Do you want to hear? You know? Su Zimo asked, surprised. You've been inside the blood rune space? Anyway, just answer me. Do you want to hear or not? Lady Jing smiled, and her smile was beautiful. Yes, Su Zimo nodded. Then give me a kiss, and I'll tell you, Lady Jing said, closing her eyes slightly. Her eyelashes trembled lightly, her cheeks tinged with blush, pale skin flushed pink, her lips like little cherries, her delicate brows arched softly. Seriously? Su Zimo shook his head, turned, and walked away. Hey, you! Lady Jing quickly grabbed his arm, helplessly saying, You really are my destined nemesis. Fine, I'll just tell you. The blood rune space was left behind by the holy progenitor. Inside, aside from blood rune beasts, there is also the ancient celestial court. You know of the ancient celestial court? Su Zimo asked in surprise. Listen first. The ancient celestial court is surrounded by formations, so the blood rune beasts can't get near. For you, the formation isn't much of an obstacle, but inside the celestial court, there are two guardian divine beasts. Lady Jing continued, Their strength is great, at least at half-step Nirvana Void. And among the blood rune beasts, there should also be some at half-step Nirvana Void, perhaps even true Nirvana Void. Hearing this, Su Zimo pondered for a moment. No matter what, he would have to try. Thank you, Lady Jing. Su Zimo nodded. Whatever her motives, she had at least genuinely helped him. Just call me Jinger, Lady Jing said with a shy glance. That act of yours works well on those who think with their third leg. I'm not the type. Su Zimo shook his head. Watching his departing back, Lady Jing bit her lip, stamping her foot a few times in frustration. When Su Zimo returned, the Lord of Destruction smiled and said, Holy Sun Su seems quite close with Lady Jing. Just acquaintances. Su Zimo shook his head. There's no harm in befriending her, the Lord of Destruction said with a smile. In this world, there's little she doesn't know. I once sought her out over the matter of the blood rune beasts, but my efforts were clumsy compared to yours. Su Zimo replied half-heartedly, not wanting to engage further. He truly wasn't close with her, yet she always acted so intimate. Mountain City, the inner city where the Lord of Destruction resided. From the outside, it looked like a towering, majestic mountain, hence its name. The surroundings of Mountain City were heavily guarded, full of patrolling soldiers in armor, not daring to relax for even a moment. Following the Lord of Destruction, they entered Mountain City. Chapter 957, Heavenly Dao Ai. Inside Mountain City, birds sang and flowers bloomed, and climbing vines stretched high up the brown walls. This was truly a place suited for retirement. Following the Lord of Destruction, they passed through pavilions and quiet corridors, gradually leaving behind the city's buildings. The three of them arrived at a remote location. This place was so desolate it resembled a graveyard. The surrounding land reflected barrenness, and a few crows with gloomy eyes perched at the corners of the walls. When they saw the group approach, they were not afraid. Instead, they let out sharp cries at them. This is the entrance to the blood rune space, the Lord of Destruction said. He raised his right hand, and a mighty force condensed in his palm. The next moment, the ground cracked, and endless power surged into the air. The void before them seemed to be torn apart. Images flickered in the broken void, resembling the boundary between 2 and 3 dimensions. The power surrounding the Lord of Destruction grew stronger and stronger. In the end, his entire body was wrapped in golden light, his figure almost invisible. Then, with a loud boom, the transformation of the void was complete. Before them appeared a black sphere. Its internal structure could not be seen, only endless darkness on the outside, like a kind of barrier. A powerful energy coiled around the outer layer of the barrier. If one listened carefully, faint beastly roars could even be heard from within. The Lord of Destruction stretched out his right hand and handed Su Zimo a spinning black crystal. This is the remnant of the sealing domain. With it, you can be swallowed inside, he said. But remember, once inside, tread carefully. Above all, your safety matters most. As his words fell, the Lord of Destruction shouted again, "Swallow!" The remnant in Su Zimo's hand wrapped around him, transforming into a beam of light that shot violently into the barrier. The next instant, Su Zimo felt his consciousness blur as rumbling sounds echoed endlessly in his ears. The thunderous roar never ceased, and he lost all sensation, drifting in the grayness toward an endless distance. Only when Su Zimo's figure disappeared into the void did the Lord of Destruction withdraw his aura, allowing everything to calm again. "What lies within?" Ji Ruobing asked. "The most ferocious things in existence," the Lord of Destruction replied. "If he returns, he will be reborn. If not, then he will never be seen again." He let out a long sigh. The wisdom of the holy progenitor is truly unfathomable. Su Zimo felt dampness on his face and the sound of flowing water by his ears. Forcing his eyes open, he found the world outside bright again. The black cloth that had once covered his eyes was gone, and his transformation was now complete. Su Zimo closed his eyes and felt carefully. After a long time, he whispered to himself, "Heavenly Tao Eye." From the heavenly tribulation god eyes, it had evolved into the heavenly Tao Eye. This was not merely an increase in power. The heavenly Tao Eye represented the will of the grand Tao, watching over the entire world. Whoever violated the order would face divine punishment from heaven and earth. Just like the tribulations faced when stepping from the zenith immortal realm into the nirvana void realm, the ninefold tribulations, all were descended by the heavenly Tao Eye. Shifting stars, illuminating all things, avoiding death, extending life, boundless heavens and earth. The heavenly Tao Eye transcended the category of mere attack. If a blood-rune beast tried to disguise itself now, Su Zimo could likely see through it instantly. In his pupils there was not only black and white but also a trace of blue. They were deep, as though gathering all things under heaven within them. Seeing mountains as mountains, water as water. Then seeing mountains not as mountains, water not as water. Mountains as water, water as mountains. Understanding one's true heart, and then resting at ease. As everyone knew, once cultivation reached a certain level, it was no longer about simply absorbing spiritual energy. It was about comprehending the Tao. Some could comprehend it in a single night, rainbow light piercing the sky, allowing them to stride 3,000 miles. Others could ponder it daily for a lifetime, yet never gain it. The heavenly Tao Eye greatly enhanced one's comprehension. It struck directly at the Tao, confronting one's own heart, thereby entering deeper into the Tao. It was as though others walked a winding road toward enlightenment, while Su Zimo had carved out a straight shortcut beside it. After sensing these changes in his eyes for a long time, he opened them again. He looked around. He was in a narrow valley, with a clear river flowing gently under his feet. The water was cool and refreshing, surrounded by lush mountains and dense trees. Occasionally, the crisp chirping of birds echoed from deep within the forest. "This?" Su Zimo looked around in astonishment. He had asked both the blood-rune beasts and the Lord of Destruction about this place before. The answers were always the same. The blood-rune space was shrouded in eternal darkness, filled only with an endless rolling sea of blood. "Is this really the blood-rune space?" Su Zimo muttered in doubt. Where was the blood sea? This place looked like a paradise. Birdsong, flowers, green mountains, clear waters, blue seas and skies. He slowly stood, preparing to explore further ahead. He even suspected he had entered the wrong space, that this was some other world rather than the blood-rune space. Passing through the quiet valley, there was no sign of life, not even a trace of human presence. Beyond the gorge, in the distance, stretched a vast green prairie. The grass grew tall and the air was fresh. Walking through the grassland, Su Zimo quickly lost his sense of direction. Above, there was no sun, only an overly blue sky filled with drifting white clouds. After walking for over an hour, Su Zimo finally spotted a faintly visible village in the distance. He quickened his pace. After another 10 minutes, he stood before the village. He did not reveal himself right away but hid to observe. Smoke rose lazily from chimneys. Someone was cooking. At the village entrance stood two figures chatting. Both had beast heads atop human bodies, grotesque in appearance, their forms indescribably strange. But aside from their heads, the rest of their bodies looked no different from humans. Su Zimo thought for a moment and took out the Codex of Life and Death. Previously, after killing 3 blood rune beasts, he had stored their power within it. Now he drew on that power and used disguise techniques to alter his own appearance. He too now bore a beast head, with the same attribute of power. This was a very simple disguise technique, enough to fool ordinary blood rune beasts, though those with stronger cultivation would see through it immediately. After adjusting everything, Su Zimo strode boldly into the village. As soon as he entered, the 2 blood rune beasts chatting nearby noticed him. A new face. "Who are you?" one of them asked. "I got lost," Su Zimo said quickly with a smile. "I happened to see this village, so I came to ask for directions. Where is this place?" Chapter 958. An Extraordinary World. Lost your way. The blood rune beast on the left seemed to have the voice of a man. His voice was deep, and a long sword was strapped to his back. Apart from their appearances, their words and actions were no different from humans. "This is Wukong Village, located within the borders of the Dark Kingdom. Do you know where your home is?" Although the man explained, his expression remained guarded. "This is Wukong Village?" Su Zimo thought for a moment, then casually made up a name. "My home is in the Floating Village. Have you heard of it?" Hearing Su Zimo's words, the 2 blood rune beasts glanced at each other and shook their heads in secret. "Never heard of it. In that case, I'll go ask elsewhere," Su Zimo said with some disappointment. Seeing Su Zimo about to leave, the blood rune beast on the right quickly called out, "Please, friend, stay." Su Zimo turned his head and looked at him in puzzlement. "We know the surroundings of Wukong Village very well. There is definitely no such place as Floating Village. If you keep asking around, you'll most likely get lost again. Why not stay in the village for a few days? When we go to the Dark Kingdom, we can take you along. At that time, you can ask in the capital city. Perhaps you'll find some clues," the blood rune beast on the right suggested. "Wouldn't that be a bother to you?" Su Zimo asked cautiously. "After all, I'm a stranger. It doesn't matter. When traveling, we should help each other." The blood rune beast on the left nodded and replied, "Our blood rune beast clan always advances and retreats together. That's one of our guiding principles." "May I know how to address the 2 elder brothers?" Su Zimo quickly asked. "I am Han Xingxiao and he is Han Xingtao," the blood rune beast on the right explained. Su Zimo quickly gave his own name in return. In his heart, he thought that from what the 2 just said, this indeed seemed to be the blood rune beast race. He hadn't come to the wrong place. But why was the atmosphere so different from what he had imagined? Following the 2 into the village. Along the way, Su Zimo saw many things. There was no difference between this place and a human village. Shops, elders, children, all sorts of blood rune beasts walked about. "You haven't eaten yet, have you?" Han Xingxiao asked while leading the way. "I picked some wild fruits along the way," Su Zimo replied a little embarrassed. "Well, here we are." Han Xingxiao stopped and pointed at a courtyard ahead with a smile. "This is my home. You can stay here for now. In a few days, when we go to the kingdom to sell animal hides, we'll take you along. Then I'll be troubling Brother Han." Su Zimo quickly expressed his thanks. He looked carefully at the courtyard. It was rather simple, the outer walls built from ordinary stones. The houses inside were either thatched huts or built from clay. Not just this yard, on the way here, it seemed the entire village's construction techniques were very primitive. At the center of the courtyard stood a grapevine. The vine climbed along a wooden frame, covering the sky above the yard. At the entrance, a young girl sat on a chair washing clothes. When Su Zimo saw her, he was slightly surprised. Because unlike the blood rune beasts, she looked human. Her features were very clear, with 2 lamb fat braids, and her clothes were plain. When she smiled, a small dimple appeared on the left side of her face, and she had two small canine teeth above the corners of her mouth. Seeing the two men return, the girl quickly called out, "Father, uncle." Han Xingtao nodded slightly. This is... Su Zimo looked at her with surprise. He had carefully sensed her. She should not be human. It must be some transformation technique of the blood rune beasts. He couldn't very well use the heavenly Dao Eye to check. "Brother Su, don't be nervous," Han Xingxiao explained from the side. "My niece's bloodline is a bit different, so her appearance is not quite the same as ours." "Oh, of course. It's just my first time seeing it, so I find it interesting." Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. "Uncle, who is he?" The girl looked at Su Zimo curiously and asked. "My name is Su Zimo, from Floating Village," Su Zimo quickly explained. "But later, when I was picking herbs in the mountains, I accidentally fell off a cliff. When I woke up, I was lost. Yes, I intend to let him stay at our house for a few days. Then we'll take him to the kingdom so he can ask the way back home," Han Xingxiao explained. The girl nodded slightly, looking at Su Zimo with a mixture of timidity and shyness. "My name is Han Yenro." The girl softly introduced herself. "Little Ro, is the meal ready?" Han Xingxiao asked with a smile. "Yes," Han Yenro quickly replied. She hurried into the kitchen and brought out the meal, placing it on the stone table in the yard. Han Xingxiao invited Su Zimo to eat. Su Zimo didn't know what kind of food the Blood Rune Beast clan ate. A bowl of pitch-black food, it was impossible to tell what it was made from. He tried a bite. The flavor was strong, but apart from that, it was acceptable. During the meal, Han Yenro kept sneaking glances at Su Zimo. Whenever their eyes met, she quickly looked away, her gaze filled with curiosity and shyness. "Based on your age, I'll call you Little Zimo." After the meal, Han Xingxiao said with a smile. Su Zimo nodded slightly. "We're going to prepare animal hides later. You can rest here, or take a walk around the village to get familiar," Han Xingxiao instructed. "Little Ro, prepare a room for him to rest in later." "Got it." Han Yenro nodded gently. After the meal, Han Xingxiao and the others left. Han Yenro returned to the kitchen to clean up, leaving Su Zimo alone in the courtyard. He felt a bit bored. Not wanting to appear suspicious, he didn't go out. Instead, he leaned on the stone bench and dozed off. "Master Su." Han Yenro's soft voice came from the side. Su Zimo slowly opened his eyes. "What is it?" "The room for you to rest in is ready. You can take a look." Han Yenro pointed to one of the houses, speaking softly. "Thank you." Su Zimo nodded. He entered the room. Inside, it was rather simple. A bed, a rectangular cabinet at the bedside. Opposite was a chair like a small sofa for resting. The air carried a faint fragrance. "Do you like it?" Han Yenro asked timidly. "It's very good. Thank you." Su Zimo nodded with a smile. "Then I'll go back to washing clothes," Han Yenro said quickly and hurried out. Su Zimo felt she was a little too shy, as if she didn't dare speak with him. The day passed quickly, and soon night fell. Chapter 959, Bloodline Reversion. "Looks fine," Han Xingtao said faintly. A little farther from the courtyard, Han Xingxiao and Han Xingtao were standing on a slope, watching the scene inside. After observing Su Zimo for an entire day, Han Xingxiao slightly nodded. "We were overthinking. Our family is neither wealthy nor powerful. There's nothing here worth scheming for. But that floating village he mentioned, I've never heard of it. Must be a village from some other kingdom," Han Xingtao said. "Second brother, what do you think of him?" Han Xingxiao suddenly asked. "What do you mean, big brother?" Han Xingtao was stunned. "Rower is of marrying age now." Han Xingxiao let out a long sigh. "Big brother, don't tell me you're thinking." Han Xingtao asked in disbelief. "What nonsense. They've barely known each other for half a day. How could Rower's lifelong matter be decided so carelessly?" "That's not what I meant." Han Xingxiao glared at him. He said, "You never even ask why." "Why then?" Han Xingtao asked stubbornly. "You know well, Rower has never been accepted by others because of her appearance, Han Shengshao said. Sometimes you have to believe it. Eyes are the windows of the soul. They reflect all that's inside. When little Mo first saw Rower, I could see it clearly. There was no disgust or rejection in his eyes. Aside from a little surprise, no other emotion at all. Han Shengtao snorted but didn't refute. Step by step. At least now we know he has no bad intentions. The rest depends on fate between the two, Han Shengshao said. Let's head home. That night Su Zimo didn't eat. He once again experienced the tempering of the great dream scripture. The sound of footsteps outside woke him. Dawn was just breaking. Everything seemed in its most primal state, all things still asleep. Su Zimo walked out of the room. Outside, Han Yenro was carrying a basket, preparing to leave. Where are you going so early? Su Zimo asked curiously. To pick some ingredients for breakfast, Han Yenro said softly. Can I come along? Just happens I can look around the area, Su Zimo said. And I can protect you too. Seeing Su Zimo flex his arm to show his muscles, Han Yenro covered her mouth and giggled. She nodded lightly. It was clear that no matter what she did, she always seemed delicate, as if a breeze could blow her away. Following behind Han Yenro, Su Zimo walked out of the village. After the two left, Han Shengshao and Han Shengtao came out from a nearby house. Should I follow them? Han Shengtao asked. No need. Trust my instinct, Han Shengshao replied with a smile before heading back inside. Han Shengtao stood thinking for a long time before finally sighing. Leaving the village, the two walked north. Are you human? Su Zimo asked, looking at Han Yenro. What race is that? Han Yenro asked curiously. I only know we are of the Blood Rune race. You look very much like the humans I've seen, Su Zimo said. Do I look ugly like this? Han Yenro asked with some self-doubt. Not at all. Su Zimo shook his head. To be fair, Han Yenro had a pure and fresh look. Su Zimo thought inwardly that it was mainly her plain clothing that hid much of her charm. If she wore some light makeup and proper clothes, she might not be stunningly breathtaking, but she would surely be a beauty. Her dimples were especially attractive, and paired with her little tiger teeth, she naturally gave people the urge to tease her. Hearing Su Zimo's words, Han Yenro's cheeks flushed, and her appearance grew even lovelier. Do you know how vast our world is? Su Zimo asked, trying to gather useful information. The farthest I've been is the Dark Kingdom. Han Yenro shook her head. And as citizens of the Dark Kingdom, without the king's command, we're not allowed to leave the kingdom's territory. Why? Su Zimo asked, puzzled. You don't have such rules where you're from? Han Yenro asked curiously. No, why is it like that? There's no why. It's the law set by the king. Do you know where the Sea of Blood is? Su Zimo asked again. Sea of Blood? What is that? Han Yenro shook her head once more. I don't remember the way home. I only know there was a sea of blood near my home, Su Zimo said after thinking. At this, both of them fell silent. Don't worry. Father and uncle will definitely help you find the way home, Han Yenro encouraged. Then she looked at Su Zimo expectantly. When you go home, will you come visit us again? I'll take you to my place. It's much more exciting there, Su Zimo said with a smile. Really? Han Yenro's face lit up with joy as she asked eagerly. Su Zimo nodded slightly. Come with me? I'll show you something, Han Yenro said with a smile. She tossed her basket aside, grabbed Su Zimo's hand, and ran toward the distance. They ran for nearly 10 minutes, arriving at a tall hill. Look quickly, it's just in time, Han Yenro pointed to the horizon. Su Zimo raised his head and saw that in the originally dark sky, a streak of blood red had appeared. The red light spread across the horizon like evening glow, but the color was much deeper. Mixed with a bit of gold, it looked very beautiful. Every morning when dawn breaks, this sight appears, Han Yenro explained shyly. Beautiful, isn't it? Sunrise. Su Zimo was surprised. But this world clearly had no sun, so why did such a phenomenon exist? As the blood red grew stronger, the world gradually brightened. After a while, both felt tired and lay down in the grass on the hilltop. Do you know, all these years, you're the first person my age willing to stay and talk with me, Han Yenro said. Why? Su Zimo asked in surprise. They all think I'm ugly, Han Yenro said sadly. With them looking like that, they still have the nerve to call you ugly? Su Zimo blurted. But then he quickly realized, everything is relative. From the human perspective, these Blood Rune race members were grotesque, even monstrous. But from the Blood Rune perspective, perhaps humans were the ones who looked like monsters. Were you born this way? Su Zimo asked. Father tried to find ways to heal me. They said it's a bloodline reversion, Han Yenro explained. One of my ancestors once interbred with humans, so that's why there's such a thing as reversion. Though the odds are 1 in 10,000, it happened to me. Chapter 960 Old Sao. Hearing Han Yenro's words, Su Zimo fell silent. He thought that she must have grown up constantly being mocked for her looks. So when he didn't despise her, she would naturally become so excited and happy. Then, now we count as friends, right? Han Yenro asked cautiously. Of course. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. Honestly, I think you look much better than those ugly monsters. I'll show you something. Han Yenro covered her mouth and laughed softly, then carefully took out a picture book from her pocket. Su Zimo took the book and was stunned. He didn't know who drew it, but the contents depicted the late legendary era, the great war between the Holy Progenitor and the Blood Rune race. The Holy Progenitor held the true God sword, his entire body shrouded in sword intent. Beneath his sword, 3,000 miles of clouds and moonlight were destroyed underfoot. His figure was tall and majestic, leaving only a back view, shouldering the heavens and stepping on the earth. Behind him were countless members of the Blood Rune race prostrating on the ground. Where did you get this? Su Zimo asked. I picked it up on a mountain long ago, Han Yenro replied. Look at this man. Isn't he like me? Someone whose bloodline regressed? Su Zimo felt their focus was completely different. To him, this was the historical record of the Holy Progenitor suppressing the Blood Rune race. But to Han Yenro, she was simply happy that she had found a kindred spirit. Would you want to go to my homeland? Su Zimo looked at her and said, There are many, many people like you there. No one would mock you anymore. With your looks, you might even be admired. Really? Han Yenro asked excitedly. Su Zimo nodded slightly and said, Since childhood? Have you ever met anyone like you? Han Yenro shook her head again. Oh no. She patted her forehead and quickly said, We still haven't gathered the food. If Father and the others wake up, they'll go hungry. She grabbed Su Zimo again and went back to pick up the basket they had thrown aside earlier. The food they ate seemed to be a type of vegetable, but Su Zimo didn't recognize any of the plants here. He just followed behind Han Yenro, playing along. After collecting the food, they walked back toward the village. When they reached the village entrance, Han Yenro suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Su Zimo asked curiously. In the future. She twisted the corner of her clothes, her palms sweating. She lowered her head, her face red for a long time before she finally said, Can I call you Zimo? Call me however you like. Su Zimo nodded casually. MHM. Han Yenro nodded, hesitated for a long time, then finally lifted her head. The moment she saw Su Zimo, she quickly lowered it again. Her voice, as faint as a mosquito's buzz, whispered, Zimo. After saying it, she ran into the village without looking back. During breakfast, the sky outside grew darker. A cold wind blew, carrying a sense of desolation. Thick clouds covered the blue sky, making the weather frighteningly gloomy. Han Shengshao looked up at the sky and sighed. Looks like a heavy rain is coming. Our trip to the Empire will have to be delayed a few days. The others nearby stayed silent. Brother Han, are you going to the kingdom to sell beast pelts? Su Zimo asked curiously. Yes, we have a kind of beast here called the demiox. Its hide is in high demand, and that's our main source of income, Han Shengshao explained. So you might as well stay a few more days. Once the rain passes, we'll set off. Su Zimo nodded slightly and asked again, Brother Han, do you know where the Blood Sea is? I've never heard of it. Han Xingxiao shook his head. Su Zimo felt increasingly lost. If he couldn't find any clues here, he'd have no choice but to leave and search elsewhere. At the very least, the Dark Kingdom would be his first destination. After breakfast, Han Xingxiao and his brother left, leaving only Su Zimo and Han Yenro inside. Han Yenro carried a few quilts into Su Zimo's room. Zimo, it might rain today. I was worried you'd be cold tonight, so I brought you some quilts. Thanks, Su Zimo said with a smile. Han Yenro shook her head slightly, placed the quilts down, and then left. Su Zimo spent the whole day idling in his room. He took the chance to return to the True Fate world to check on the God world. The world's development was now on the right track. Even the myriad beast realm was growing steadily. When Su Zimo arrived, Paimon and Chaos came to greet him. How's that sky blue demon rock we sent here last time? Su Zimo asked. Master, please follow me, Paimon said. Deep in the myriad beast realm, the demon rock was bound by the laws of the God world. It was nailed into the void, unable to move. This guy's bones are really tough, Chaos said on the side. But it doesn't matter. We've got all the time in the world. Don't dream of me submitting. I endured through an entire era within the Heavenly Tao Academy's seal. Why would I fear you now? The demon rock's mocking voice came from afar. When it saw Su Zimo walk closer, its expression instantly turned furious. Boy, I remember you. And I remember you too, Su Zimo said with a smile. Release me, the demon rock demanded. Why should I? Su Zimo asked back. I will never submit to you, unless you kill me, the demon rock said coldly. I've always believed there's nothing truly absolute in this world. Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. Then what do you want? The demon rock snorted. My veins carry noble blood. I will never submit to lowly humans like you. Your bloodline is noble? Su Zimo chuckled and looked at Chaos. Give it 7 more days to consider. If it still refuses to submit, cripple its demon veins and destroy its bloodline. Also, buy some strong aphrodisiacs, feed them to a few old sows, and lock them in with it. Hearing Su Zimo's words, everyone shivered. You claim your bloodline is noble, but what if you end up producing offspring with pigs? Boss, aren't sows too cheap for this guy? Chaos suggested. Why not use a few boars instead? All right, let's do as you say. You're in charge of the whole thing. Su Zimo nodded. What are you trying to do? The demon rock's face changed drastically. A warrior can be killed but not humiliated. Don't go too far. But Su Zimo ignored it and left with Paimon. The demon rock's anxious shouts echoed endlessly behind them. Have you been watching over the God world for me? Is everything stable recently? Su Zimo asked Paimon.